Chair, you have a live mic.
Or taps.
Good morning, everybody. If we could have you take your seats and we can go ahead and get started on time. Appreciate everybody being here. Obviously, we got a lot of big topics on the agenda and made better by your attendance for sure. County Manager, let's proceed with the invocation, and I've asked Mr. Miller to lead us in the pledge.
Yes, sir. We have an invocation by Reverend Rex Childs, First Presbyterian Church of Naples.
Thank you. Glad to be here this morning. Let's pray. Almighty God, your glory shines throughout the world, yet our hearts are heavy with grief as we think of those places around the world that are experiencing violence and war. We pray for it to end. We pray for you to bring peace upon the earth. And we give you thanks that we live in a place of safety and security. We commend our nation, our state, our county to your merciful care. Bless those who hold office in the county government, that they may do their work in a spirit of courage, kindness, and justice. Help them remember they are called to serve the people, so that they would use their authority to serve faithfully and promote the general welfare. Give them wisdom and strength as they make important decisions which will impact our community today and for many years to come. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A lot of patriotic people out there. That's how you say the pledge, right? Everybody knows the words too, right? Yeah. Not everybody in this country does, but I'm glad to hear it was very evident from up here. So that's right. That's right. You may not agree with everything that's going to happen in this room today, or you might, but there's worse places across the world right now that don't get this luxury. So we're very lucky, and that flag represents everything that we're about to do today, and I hope you all agree. County Manager.
Commissioners' agenda changes for October 24th, 2023. First, move item 16K6 to 12A. This is a recommendation that the board direct that the appeal of official interpretation PL 2023-001-0644 regarding the interpretation of a neighborhood fitness and community center in the golf course and recreational use zoning district be sent to the hearing examiner for public hearing and decision. This is being moved to the regular agenda by the separate requests of Commissioner LaCastro, Saunders, and Kowal. Item 14B1 has been withdrawn. This is a recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners and the BCC, acting as a community redevelopment agency, direct staff to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement with Naples Cinematique, Inc. or its assigned affiliate for the approximately 1.84 acres of CRA-owned property at the corner of Thomason Drive and Bayshore Drive in the Bayshore Gateway Triangle Community Redevelopment Area, and to bring back an agreement for further consideration. This withdrawal was at staff's request. Item 16B3 has been continued to the November 14th meeting. This is a recommendation to award invitation to bid number 23-8130, US 41 North Landscape Irrigation Renovation Improvements to Hanula Landscaping and Irrigation, Inc. in the amount of $267,205.86, and authorize the chairman to sign the attached agreement and approve the necessary budget amendments. This item is being moved by the request of Commissioner McDaniel. We do have a note that the agenda system failed to upload one of the large attachments to item 16B1. This is a recommendation to award invitation to bid number 23-8119, signal improvements at Airport Road and Poinciana Elementary School to Horsepower Electric, Inc. in the amount of $613,981, and authorize the chairman to sign the attached agreement. That agreement attachment was publicly posted on our website for this meeting, and a link was also sent last week for review of the agreement. We have several time-certain items today. Our add-on item 5A will be heard immediately after item 2C. It's a presentation by the Collier County Tax Collector, Rob Stoneburner. Add on item 10A to be heard at 10 a.m. This is a recommendation that the board commits to providing the Collier County Sheriff all necessary resources to ensure the safety and security of all residents, visitors, schools, and places of worship during the ongoing conflict in Israel and Gaza. This comes to the agenda at Commissioner Saunders' request. Companion items 9A and 9B to be heard at 10:30 a.m. This is a recommendation to approve a rezoning ordinance for and to approve and submit a small-scale growth management plan amendment ordinance to the Florida Department of Commerce for Ascend Naples. It should be the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, I believe. And finally, item 11C will be heard at 3 p.m. This is a recommendation to approve funding allocations to support the Golden Gate Golf Course workforce and senior housing projects. We do have court reporter breaks scheduled for just before our time certain item at 10:30 and again at 2:50 depending on our lunch break. And Troy, I believe we do have speakers on the consent agenda before we go to the commissioners.
Yes, we do. Would you like them now?
So just a couple of housekeeping things. Some of you may have been in chambers here before, some of you may not. Everybody reach into their purses and pockets and put your cell phones on silent. Okay, we don't want to hear the Pink Panther theme, in the middle of somebody's speech and all of that. So please do that. And when you come back from lunch, when you turn your phone on and then come back from lunch, we need you to also do the same thing. The other thing is just more of a generic announcement. With so many people in here and you're all passionate about a very specific agenda item, we really work hard to run a professional meeting. So God rest his soul. I know Jerry Springer passed away recently, but this isn't the Jerry Springer show. So clapping and screaming and hooting and hollering, that's not how we do it here. And we've really made some tough decisions in some very professional settings, and I think we've all been proud of that. So we just appreciate everybody having professional decorum. And when you have your time at the podium to speak, you want a quiet room and you want to be heard. Everybody else wants the same thing, and it helps us as well. So cell phones off. Let's get ready for a robust meeting, but extremely professional. We appreciate it, and I know the speakers do as well. So, Mr. Miller, who do we have for the consent agenda?
Your first consent agenda speaker is Mark L. Shapiro. He'll be speaking on item 16A8. He will be followed by Mary Alger, who will be speaking on item 16J4. That podium, and Mary, if I could get you to queue up at this podium. Sir, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm Mark Shapiro, and it's on the consent agenda to reduce the fines on a property. I would like to ask that the fines be waived, and there's very specific reasons for this one. So I bought the property through a trust at a foreclosure sale. So I did not cause the violations. In fact, I'm the one that cleared the violations, and I cleared them immediately upon buying the property at foreclosure. I have a course of dealing since 1992. I've been buying properties at tax deed sales and foreclosure sales, and I've always contacted the code enforcement, and I would pay any administrative costs or hard costs they had, and then they would waive the fines as long as the violation was cleared up. I had no reason to believe this would be any different. I purchased the property in April 27th, and I believe the new law that you all passed regarding code enforcement liens and them not being able to be waived was passed after I purchased the property. So there was no way at the time I purchased the property I could have known that there would be any different course of dealings than I've had over the last 30 years. I purchased the property and I paid an amount considering that it would be business as usual, that I would fix the violations, I would pay the hard cost, and that the fines of $100 per day would be waived because that's the way we have always done it. I was shocked to learn that there was a new ordinance that passed and code enforcement said that their hands are tied, they can no longer do this. I've actually waited until now because there was no procedure, there was no application to fill out until approximately August. So all this time I've been waiting to ask to have the fines either reduced or waived. So that's real money that I have had tied up that I have not been able to sell the property or do anything with the property because of the lien on the property. And if I had to pay the whole lien, I would quite frankly end up losing money on this. And I'm asking for this case for there to be a very narrow exception, because at the time I purchased the property at foreclosure sale, I could have not known that this ordinance by the Collier County Board of Commissioners would have been passed, or the procedures would have changed at all. So based on this narrow, because I kind of fell right into this window, I would ask that the fines be waived in this particular case. Thank
I
you.
got two commissioners lit up. I'll just say you shouldn't have been shocked that we changed the rule. You should have actually been impressed. Because the money that that any person would pay, I'm not going to say specifically to you. In your case, there might be a special circumstance, but the money that we have not been collecting over all these years, like you said, it was common practice. Buy the property. Sometimes the property owner would buy it at a greatly reduced rate because of the lien or because of the bills that the previous owner piled up. Would buy it at a reduced rate and then come here and get that get all those fines waived. So in the end, the seller and the buyer got this sweet deal. And the money that you'd be paying us, it's not coming to the county, it's coming to the taxpayers. And when we sit up here debating nickels and dimes of how to keep our libraries open and everything, and we had millions that were going out the door. So we did tighten up the process, not to just say it changed from waiving to all of a sudden payment in full. But we asked our staff to look at each particular instance, and if there was a special circumstance, great. But in some cases, fines that were in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that would have gone to the taxpayers and we could have utilized in other ways went immediately to zero, because, as you said, that's the way we always did it. Well, that's why we made the change here. I've got two commissioners lit up. I think, is this in District 5? Is your parcel? At least that's what it says on the agenda.
This was in Lake Trafford.
Okay. Well, I'll go to the commissioners. Commissioner Saunders, and then, sir, Commissioner Hall, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to take this off the consent agenda. We can't make a decision at least I don't think we should make a decision until we have our staff tell us what all the circumstances were. So I'd like to take this off the agenda, off the consent agenda, put it on the regular agenda. We probably would get to this around 4 o'clock today. So you wouldn't have to wait around all day, but I think we should give Mr. Shapiro an opportunity to present the evidence and before we make a final decision.
Yeah, everybody is lit up, but I would agree. We're not here to penalize you or anything, but we definitely want to look at all the details, and rather than just sort of make a knee-jerk. I definitely agree here. Commissioner Hall and then Commissioner McDaniel.
I'll save my comments till that time.
Yeah. Commissioner McDaniel?
And I'll
Okay,
second
so,
the motion.
okay, so we got a motion from Commissioner Saunders, a second from Commissioner McDaniel, and you don't necessarily have to wait around until 4. I mean, we've heard your pitch.
The reason I said 4, we have a time certain at 3.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so I'm sure we're going to be here probably at 4 o'clock anyway. That's why I suggested that. So then I would make the motion to take this off the consent, put it on the regular agenda. Let's hear it at 4 o'clock.
So I got a motion from Commissioner Saunders, a second from Commissioner McDaniel. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. We'll have the discussion with a little bit more detail from our staff and take your comments into consideration, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Which
Yes,
item
sir.
was that?
Commissioners,
Get that right.
16 what?
it's 16A8. It will become item 11D at 4 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman, your remaining speakers on consent agenda are all for item 16J4. Mary Alger will be followed by Beth Sherman.
J4.
Shall I start?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mary Alger, Marco Island. God help me, my reading glasses just broke. So I was going to be really happy to read what I have written. I'm here to ask that Collier County not participate in the Equitable Sharing Civil Asset Forfeiture Program. What is the Equitable Sharing Civil Asset Forfeiture Program? It is seizing assets in a civil matter. This is not a criminal seizure in which a crime is committed, one is charged, one has the right to defense, and is allowed a day in court. Civil asset forfeiture turns the law upside down and seizes an asset, essentially arresting the asset, which has no rights, but tied to the citizen that does. Property, vehicles, legal firearms, business assets, it puts the burden on the one who had the asset seized upon to prove that it was not used illegally. No American could or would know all the laws and regulations on the book at any given moment. Obscure regulations can be used to make a crime out of anything. No one has the resources to fight against an out-of-control, weaponized federal government to defend oneself against such an onslaught. This is not forfeiture. This is theft. We all see how the federal government is out of control via all its unconstitutional agencies. We have seen the militarization and the unchecked power of the IRS, DEA, FBI, Secret Service, ATF. They are reaching the long arm of their out-of-control agencies through the glove of local and state agencies. They are, in essence, deputizing state and local agencies to do their federal deeds. How are they doing this? Is done through a simple agreement, incentivizing others to share in the profits of the unconstitutional theft of private property seized without due process. State and local agencies generally receive 80% of the asset's value. Forfeiture implies a cooperation between two parties. There's no cooperation when an asset is taken. We only have to remember the raid on the Gibson Guitar Company. Their company was involved in 2 hostile raids with SWAT teams. They took their computers, electronics, files, forced the employees off the premise, shut down their production and seized their products as contraband, and made threats to the business that they would be forced to close. Their crime, they were told they were illegally harvested, were using illegally harvested Indian wood. A look at the competitors' catalog listed the same wood being used in their guitars. They were not raided. The difference, their competitor's CEO was a large donor to the DNC and Barack Obama. The law the agents used wasn't even a U.S. law. They sought seizure via a law in India. The Indian government proved that the wood was not illegally harvested, yet you have a motive to act in any of the when you have a motive to act in any of the 7 deadly sins, there's a reason for seizure will be found. This program does not afford equal protection under the laws. There's no incentive to pursue a case against anyone without assets. Property rights are all tied with assets. Take a man's earned property and becomes a slave. Property is also protected by the law from lawless, not the other way around. This whole program sounds a lot like Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum telling us you'll own nothing and be happy. No, Klaus, we will not forfeit our assets to the global technocracy that you deem to be the godless king of all property globally. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Your next speaker is Beth Sherman. She'll be followed by Scott Sherman. Ms. Sherman's been seated. Additional minutes from Nancy Bartenstein. I hope I'm saying that right. Yes, she's back there. And Marge Heinzel. She will have a total of 9 minutes.
Good morning. What is federal equitable sharing agreement that we're actually talking about today? It's civil asset forfeiture. It allows police and prosecutors to seize and permanently keep Americans' cash, cars, homes, and other property that is suspected of being involved in a crime, without regard to the owner's guilt or innocence. This is civil asset forfeiture. The Equitable Sharing Program went into effect and was co-sponsored by Joe Biden in 1984. That was an interesting book if you never read it. I'd describe it as a dystopian fiction of the current reality that we are now living in. All the info that I'm stating today can be found at 10thamendmentcenter.com. Local, state, and federal agencies are forfeiting billions of dollars each year. Many of those billions go to law enforcement, including the same police and prosecutors who seize and forfeit property. I'd say that's a conflict of interest. Please note again that this is for suspected crimes, not convicted crimes. It clearly flips due process on its head. Civil forfeiture allows police to seize property on the mere suspicion that it is involved in criminal activity. Prosecutors can then forfeit or permanently keep the property without ever charging its owners with a crime. Civil forfeiture is not only a civil process, it is what they call an in rem proceeding, meaning it is a lawsuit against the property and not the owner. Owners can lose the property even when they are innocent, and procedural protections common to criminal proceedings usually do not apply. Basically, it's legalized government armed robbery. 36 states and DC have taken steps to scale back their civil asset forfeiture laws since 2014. However, the federal agreement bypasses the state's steps. It's a loophole that we have allowed in our county, and I ask that it stops today. The program allows local and state law enforcement officials to partner with the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Treasury Department. Police agencies transfer seized property, money, or assets to the federal government and receive up to 80% of the proceedings from the sale of the property, regardless of the state laws. By handing over seized property to the federal government, state and local law enforcement can harness the litigation power of the federal government and circumvent state laws that provide better protection to property owners. Our Sheriff's Department is using this as a budgetary line item. I have a serious problem with that, especially since our Department of Justice legally defines me as a terrorist. Why? Because I speak out at school board meetings and against the United Nations. I speak for freedom, and that sadly is illegal now. State and local police can tap into equitable sharing by working with the feds on joint task forces. It gives the feds a way to influence local police priorities. The lure of federal money incentivizes local law enforcement to focus on federal agendas and not local ones. It deputizes them as federal agents. All property owners are entitled to the same due process rights under the U.S. Constitution. Until the equitable sharing program is eliminated, those rights remain at risk. Our Sheriff's Department has gotten a budget increase from this board and has the support of this community. I ask that you remove this from the consent agenda and vote no to renew it. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Scott Sherman, and he's your final speaker on this item.
I don't think Beth Sherman is a terrorist. I think she speaks very eloquently here every single meeting. I think my colleagues would agree with me, but anyway,
gorgeous too. Don't forget that.
That's a little editorial by me. Go ahead, sir.
No, just quickly, you guys all signed an oath to the Constitution. Before you approve the civil asset forfeiture agreement, read Articles 4 and Article 7. Thank you.
And that's all the speakers on that item, sir.
Hey, County Manager or County Attorney, do we have a comment on this item on the consent agenda? And then if we got any commissioners that want to chime in here.
You know, I'm an American, and I support the U.S. government. I mean, if people are unhappy about a program, we have mechanisms to do that. They've got the ballot box as a mechanism. There are lawsuits as a mechanism. Sheriff has asked for a grant that he's asked for many, many times before. It helps supplement his budget. All right. Without these grants, we'd have to raise taxes to make up for it. I see nothing wrong with it, but, you know, I don't know what to tell you. I don't think this is the forum to attack the federal government, which is what has been happening lately.
Commissioner Saunders?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure I understand all the details of this forfeiture agreement. I've looked at it, obviously, and I understand what's on the agenda, but I don't know how it really operates in terms of what the sheriff's involvement would be. I don't have any issue with putting this on the regular agenda so we can hear from the sheriff and from our staff. If we do that, then I would recommend that we put it on the agenda in November. We not add it today because Sheriff Roundbosk is not going to be available today. He's going to be online for the 10 o'clock item, but he's not in Florida, and so I'd want to have him here. So I would suggest that we pull this off the consent, put it on the regular agenda for November 14th. Is that the
Yeah, I mean,
correct
you know,
date?
this is the beauty of citizens coming here. I mean, we listen. We don't call people terrorists. And when something's brought to our attention that maybe didn't catch our concern but has yours, I think we do our due diligence. So I think everything Commissioner Saunders said, I certainly would second that motion. I got a couple other commissioners that just lit up. Commissioner McDaniel, sir, and then Commissioner Cole.
Morning, Mr. Chair. I agree. My simple question is maybe to the county attorney. If we choose to not, or give direction to not participate in this, does it stop the equitable sharing agreement between the municipality and the federal government? Or
It would stop the monies flowing to the sheriff. Not necessarily. I'm sure the city of Naples City, Marco Island have the same thing.
Correct, but and maybe I'm not asking the question clearly, but does the federal government still have the right of seizure?
Absolutely.
Of these
The only thing it's
assets?
doing is decreasing the sheriff's funding.
Our Exactly. So I mean, I'm more than welcome to have it come back in November and have a longer discussion about it. But I think it's important to remember that we're all we're doing is cutting our own sheriff off from a program. Whether the program is correct or not, it's a whole nother discussion. But I think all we're doing by this action is stopping that participation. And it certainly buys having the sheriff come and speak with us about it.
Commissioner Colwell?
Well, I'll save a majority of my comments if I believe we can move this off this particular and put it on a regular agenda, as Commissioner Saunders has said. But just from my experience, we've always worked in joint task force capacities with the federal government, state government, in law enforcement. And from what I understand and just from what I see is that I think from my experience, this allows us, when there is forfeiture after a criminal investigation, let's say we got a human trafficker in the state of Florida, we shut their operation down. We don't have the jurisdiction because it's actually a federal offense through crossing state borders. So the federal government works in joint with the local government. Then anything seized on that operation, we get a percentage of that. I think that's from my understanding the practice of it was in the past. So, you know, I'm more than happy to have a very good open discussion on it and here in the near future. Thank you.
Commissioner Saunders?
Thank you. Let me just ask the manager. My assumption is that by deferring this for a few weeks, we're not ending the agreement or anything. We still have the agreement in place, and this will give the public an opportunity. We've had some interesting conversation concerning the potential illegality of what the federal government is doing, and I think it's a good exercise to go through that so that the public is informed as to what this program is. But the question is, by continuing this for 3 weeks, my assumption is that we're still part of the program, and we have that opportunity to renew this if we want to renew it in November.
I don't know if there's a deadline or not.
It's unclear. It looks like they're renewed it for 1-year periods at a time. So I'm not certain if this ended on October 1st and we're just filling that gap because the term of the agreement runs to the following September in 1-year increments.
We're already outside.
Theoretically, then the agreement's already over.
Yep.
So I guess three more weeks won't make a whole lot of difference to that. So I'll make that motion. I think it's important to have the public fully understand what this is, since there have been some discussion concerning the potential negative impacts of this. So
Yeah,
I'll make that motion.
And it would be November 14th, just for those who are watching, because November 7th is obviously Election Day. So that's we're not having a commissioner meeting that day, correct?
Correct, November 14th.
Okay, Commissioner McDaniel?
And I'm sorry, I pulled off at me because in the executive summary, it says it goes through the end of September, so I presume we're already out of it for right now. So there we go.
Okay, so we got a motion by Commissioner Saunders. I second the motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, well, we will move it to November 14th. Thank you, citizens.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 2A, which is the approval of today's regular consent and summary agenda as amended and ex parte disclosure by commission members for the consent and summary agenda. Well, before that, County Attorney, do you have any other changes?
No, thank you.
Okay, to you, Commissioners.
Okay, Commissioner Cole, do you have any changes or ex parte for consent or summary agenda?
No changes, no ex parte.
And Mr. Chairman, I have no changes and no ex parte as well.
Commissioner Hall?
I have no changes. I do have meetings, emails, and calls for the summary.
Okay, which one on the summary?
Ludgert,
17A.
17A.
Okay, 17A, gotcha. Commissioner McDaniel?
No changes and no ex parte.
Same for me, no changes, no ex parte. Okay.
I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion to approve from Commissioner McDaniel. I heard a second from Commissioner Hall. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes unanimously.
Item 2B is approval of the August 8th, 2023 board meeting minutes.
So moved. Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, got a motion to move for approval from Commissioner McDaniel, a second from Commissioner Caldwell. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Item 2C is the approval of the board meeting minutes from September 26, 2023.
I'll make it another motion. I would have done them all in lump there just to save you some time. But
A motion by Commissioner McDaniel, a second by?
Second.
Commissioner Cole, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. The board minutes.
We're to the first of our time certain items. This is item 5A. This is a presentation by Collier County Tax Collector Rob Stoneburner.
Sir?
Thank you, County Manager. Thank you for indulging me in putting this on the agenda at the last minute. Good morning, Commissioners. I stand before you today. I'm a little bummed that you took away all the clapping and cheering because I don't hear any.
Your fan club is here?
Yeah, right. Anyway.
Everybody who thinks the tax collector is amazing, raise their hand. It's all the people that work for him. All the citizens who think the tax collector is, raise your hand. It's unanimous.
Thanks.
Make it fast, sir. You have 30 seconds.
You know how to make a guy feel good. Thank you. I just wanted to set the record straight. I know that during the final budget hearing meeting, there was a question about the tax collector's budget. And, you know, we all know that budgets are made up of revenues and expenses. But, you know, in the tax collector's office, you know, the key to what we do is expenses and how much money we spend. And actually, we like to think about how much money we save. So the men and women of the tax collector's office have been extremely diligent over the last year and have saved the taxpayers a tremendous amount of money. I'm proud to be here. I need to take my glasses out. Sorry. This barely fit on this check. I have a check here to go back to the board for $13,303,392.44. 13.3 million. Let's just call it, make it easy. You know. So I don't know who you want me to give this check to.
I think the chairman. I heard it's post-dated for 3 months, though, is what I heard, sir.
And the only thing that I ask is that when the legislative delegation came down here, the tax collector's office, you know, our motto in the Collier County Tax Collector's Office is service is our only product. And just remember that. If you have anything that needs to get out to the citizens, we touch just about everybody once a year, and we're happy to take on more services anytime we can. So keep that in mind. Thank you very much.
You know what I want to say to you, Ms. Stoneburner, I think it's reflected among all the commissioners. You came here totally unsolicited, and a lot of times the constitutional officers, you know, whether it's Sheriff Rambosco or some others, they do the same, but sometimes they don't. And I've actually thrown this thank you to you before because I've had some issues in my own district where I needed your expertise and got it in 30 seconds. I mean, so I just, on behalf of all of us, thank you for being so proactive and for coming here and for being responsive to all of us when we have, you know, citizen issues and we're not the expert on tax collection. I mean, as soon as I get that email, I'm like, okay, that's not me, you know, that's you. And I know it's you and your staff. And so, you know, you definitely do serve us well and help us get back to our constituents with a sense of urgency. And that doesn't go unnoticed. And it's very much appreciated. And we'll take the check as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner McDaniel, I think, has something for you.
Well, first of all, thank you. It's with your leadership that these savings are effectuated.
Again, aw shucks.
Yes. You're just doing your job. My question is where does the money go? Do we have direction as to, can we give direction as to, because we had a very robust discussion in September with regard to our budget and what we were doing, and you saw the maneuvers.
If you don't mind, let's get Mr. Finn up here to get him in the room. I'll track him down, and as soon as he comes to the room, we'll get him to the podium to explain how turnback is handled.
Okay.
Oh, and if I may, real quick, for the standing room, there's one seat open up here, so I suggest somebody comes and takes it.
Mr. Stoneburner, let me ask you just the short version. How did you return $13 million to us? What were the big things that you feel, you know, that you did right that allowed that money to go back, you know, in the kitty for other things?
Well, you know, I know the county, I don't want to take away Ed's thunder, but I know the county budgets some unused fees that we have every year. And we try to run our office like a business. The only thing is that we're not a retail operation. So statutorily, it's the statutes say that I shall collect a certain percentage on taxes, and we happen to live in a beautiful place that has a lot of value. And with that comes a lot of revenue. We also, because I'm a fee officer, we also do driver licenses and motor vehicle transactions, which also raise fees. And then at the end of the year, whatever we haven't used goes back to the taxing authorities and the pro rata share that they have those. So, we're always looking at ways to be, and I don't want to say cutting edge, not bleeding edge. Larry Ray always told me that, and look for ways to become more efficient in everything that we do. But at the end of the day, this is Collier County, and folks expect service. And when they go to see the tax collector to renew their driver license or tags or whatever it is, they don't want to wait in a line for hours on end. And so, unfortunately, sometimes we are busy. But we don't build a church for Easter Sunday, and we don't build tax collector offices to, get you in and out in 2 minutes, but we prefer that we do. And on occasion, we have long waits. But, in a nutshell, we just try to run our office like anybody would in a business, and the shareholders are the taxpayers in Collier County. And by that money going back to all the taxing authorities, you would assume that in the future, that's less taxes that need to be collected. Therefore, money's going back into their pocket.
Well, thank you for your sense of responsibility and your due diligence, spending your money wisely. And I think Mr. Finn's back there. So
We're going to have I believe Mr. Johnson can kind of come up when you're ready.
spending the taxpayer money wisely.
That's
You got it,
correct.
sir. Do you need me anymore? No, sir. Yes, sir. We do need you.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the
Morning.
record, Chris Johnson, your Director of Corporate Financial Management Services. Commissioner McDaniel, I think I heard your question. The money goes back into the general fund. We actually predicted or budgeted about $6 million of that. So the delta will be used next year to reappropriate, or this year if we recognize the carry forward and want to put it somewhere moving
Maybe
forward.
we ought to have a discussion on that going forward. There's a lot of controversy over what this board did with regard to taxation at large, and I think we ought to have that discussion. So I would welcome that.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Next.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 3, awards and recognitions. Item 3A to 30-year attendees. Our only 30-year attendee, actually. This is Bruce Gastineau, Emergency Medical Services. Congratulations.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you.
30 years. Only my hair is that old.
Don't quit. Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Mama.
3A3, 25-year attendees. Our first 25-year attendee is Donna Dowdell, Building Plan Review and Inspections. Congratulations.
Got a big fan club back there. Thank you. Yeah.
"25 years, Christopher Reyes, Engineering and Project Management." Congratulations. Item 3A for 20-year attendees. First, 20 years, Barbara Johnson, Parks and Recreation.
Congratulations.
20 years, Elsa Reza, Information Technology. Congratulations.
Big fan club.
Yeah.
20 years.
Some room's gonna clear
She
it
was
out.
here in the original modem. Ding, ding.
20 years ago, the computers ran on coal, or what? What was that?
Well, you didn't do anything. Fix my monitor. will you?
20 years, Mary Long, Parks and Recreation. Congratulations.
She was here when they invented the seesaw.
Gotta shake everybody's congratulations.
Congratulations.
20 years, James French, Growth Management, Community Development. Congratulations.
No speech.
No speech.
Especially not him.
Congratulations, James.
Thank you, sir.
I thought it was longer than 20.
I was a contractor.
You still work here?
We'll see at the end of the day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Smile. You couldn't keep him from grinning.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 4, proclamations. Item 4A is a proclamation designating October 27th through November 4th, 2023 as Mobility Week in Collier County, to be accepted by Brian Wells, Director, and Omar De Leon, Transit Manager, Public Transit and Neighborhood Enhancement. Congratulations.
It's kind of fun.
Congratulations. Thank you. Hey, thanks for all you do.
Morning. He leads our security.
Dan Collier can't.
Does a great job.
Two more.
Item 4B is a proclamation designating October 26, 2023 as Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Day in Collier County, to be accepted by Lisa Adams, Second Vice President, and other distinguished guests. Congratulations.
Smiling faces. 50 years of service. When you start when you're 5?
Winston's gonna wear red today.
Bigger stuff. Is he qualified? Yeah, he was taking a minute.
Good morning.
Diabetes.
I just want to say thank you to the Collier County Board of Commissioners for acknowledging us in our proclamation on October 26, 2023. We are so appreciative of your acknowledgement of us, and we are so appreciative of your support. And for that, we say thank you. I'm here on behalf of my president, Dina Liston, who was unable to attend, but we just wanted to say thank you, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Item 4C is a proclamation designating November 2023 as Diabetes Awareness Month in Collier County, to be accepted by Tammy Balovich, President and co-founder of Help a Diabetic Child, Inc. Congratulations.
Hello, you.
I'd look at him like that
Love you
too.
back. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Totally legal.
Absolutely.
Should I?
I want to thank you so much for recognizing November as Diabetes Awareness Month. Thank you, commissioners. We really appreciate your support. Diabetes is a deadly disease, and without insulin and diabetes medical supplies, you cannot live. That's why our organization is committed to serving the community, children, young adults who cannot afford their insulin, their medical supplies that they need for their diabetes care. So this brings awareness to the community of the need of helping these people so that they can live a long, healthy life while dealing with insulin, because with diabetes, type 1 diabetes, you are insulin dependent, meaning you cannot survive without insulin and you need multiple insulin shots daily. So thank you so much. We appreciate your support, and see you soon.
Don't go away, Tammy. Stay there, Tammy. Well, she's leaving. Tammy, come back, please. No, come to the podium, please. I'm sorry, dear. If you would please, I had the honor of visiting you and Joe not too awfully long ago at a new facility. If you would share, because there's a lot more to this. I mean, there's certainly helping folks that can't get the necessary medicines, but there's health education, there's promotion of proper dietary consumption, and so on and so forth. So, but would you please just share where your location is and how folks can get to you?
Sure. Recently, we opened up our Diabetes Resource and Advocacy Center. It's open to the general public, the community, not just for children, but we want to be a resource for everybody out there who lives with diabetes. We service the schools, we service people in the hospital, we help everybody who's struggling, and we have plenty of resources available at our center. It is located on Davis Boulevard, 2800 Davis Boulevard, Unit 107. But you could find that information on our website, helpadiabeticchild.org. And we encourage everybody to come out and visit us. If you know anybody who's living with diabetes or you just want to support. Actually, tonight we're running one of our events. It's Taco Night, Healthy Taco Night, because we want to create that community support and bring everybody together who's living with this chronic illness.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for visiting. We really appreciated that.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
Commissioners, if I could get a motion to approve the proclamations, please.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Saunders and second by Commissioner Colwell. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you. That moves us to item 6, public petitions. Item 6A is a public petition by Ewa Front on trap, neuter, and release of feral cats.
Good morning, everybody. I could just get some help here with pressing the arrows. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Meet Jan. Oh, yeah. Meet Janine. She's an acclaimed artist and my neighbor. After moving from another state, I met her in our beautiful community. Together with her sister, a retired history professor, the ladies were trying to trap a community cat with a pillowcase. They both explained to me that in order to keep the cat population down, they were able to trap a cat before with a pillowcase, bring her to a vet, and after spay surgery, release the animal back to the community. My family also discovered during our countless outdoor activities that the Naples area is full of unowned cats. We encountered in our neighborhood, besides, it just goes too fast. I'm still on the second one, thank you. We encountered in our neighborhood, besides of healthy ferals, a dead kitten outside our home while walking with my young daughter, an injured cat that was suffering for weeks with open wounds. People were concerned about that animal, but could not find anyone to offer help with trapping. Poor community cat management impacts not only the animals itself, but also the way our area is being perceived by visitors and quality of life for local residents. Next slide, please. Mission statement, Domestic Animal Services, is to work toward ending the community problem of pet overpopulation. Unfortunately, there has been no veterinary on staff for the last 1.5 years to perform spay-neuter surgeries. Animals are being transported to the veterinary offices in Collier County. What is the actual financial cost of this approach? It includes spay-neuter surgery outside of the location where the animal is being held. DAS staff needs to be involved with caring for this animal for about a month. This approach is highly ineffective and expensive, may have been implemented as an emergency measure, but after 1.5 years, it is causing damage to our community. Next slide, please. Statistics, monthly intake of stray cats, just as DAS, is between 100 and 300 as of end of September. For this year, the number is 2,169. Active trap, spay, and neuter programs are the only way to control this influx into county shelters, saving taxpayers money in the future and preventing animal suffering. Next slide, please. As a result of trap neuter release, the birth of new kittens in the colony slows down and eventually ends when all cats are spayed and neutered. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. Next slide, thank you. Lack of support creates dangerous consequences for humans and animals. Management at the local apartment complex Stillwater Cove was overwhelmed with over 140 cats and kittens on the property. Pest control was hired to relocate the cats. Local animal activists got involved and online posts started circulating on Facebook. The manager was getting threats pertaining to his family. DAS tried to react when the situation escalated and the rep was told not to return on the property. We need to prevent the cat communities from growing to this size. DAS needs to be supported to actively work with communities to trap, neuter, and return the animals. Next slide, please. Those are just examples from my beautiful community neighborhood where we live. So clearly people are want to help the animals. However, there is no education. They don't know what to do. So you see examples of people posting, oh, I have kittens in my backyard, just leave them alone. They are fine. We need to educate people that those animals need to be trapped and then bring for sterilization surgery. Next slide, please. In my beautiful community, finally, after reaching out and not getting my help and much help, I purchased several traps, and over 20 cats were on the property were spayed neuter during the last 3 years since we've been residents there. And current monitor population is around 12 outdoor cats for over 500 households. Residents don't get alarmed about the population anymore, knowing that the cats are healthy, vaccinated, and unable to reproduce. Next slide, please. While searching for help, meanwhile, I came across Domestic Animal Services page, and I'm asking for an update to that page with at least the basic management information as the name, phone number, email address, and maybe include other key positions as volunteer coordinator so the public knows who is in charge. Next slide, please. Now we have advisory board to Domestic Animal Services that was created in 2004 by an ordinance and should undergo review every 4 years. The Board of County Commissioners hereby establishes the Animal Services Advisory Board, the board, to generate community involvement in order to aid the Collier County Domestic Animal Services Department in providing the best possible services throughout Collier County. The meetings are being held in this government center after 4 p.m. The building, it's really hard to navigate. It's empty and unwelcoming. I felt like going through an airport security and not to a public meeting. Entry to the meeting requires a valid ID, and my belongings had to go through an X-ray machine. The September meeting was held as a workshop to the public, so public could no longer request an item to be placed on an agenda. All the meetings from now on are being held as workshops. The October meeting where I was petitioning to speak was already canceled. During the September meeting, I felt like my comments were being dismissed and not paid attention to. If anything, the recent changes pertaining to location, format, and frequency of the meetings are keeping participants from getting involved and voicing opinion. Next, so as you can see on the previous slide, the next meeting is in January. Next slide, please. So is the advisory board disconnected from what is happening in our communities? Why the meetings are being postponed, canceled amid urgent topics? And I'm just speaking from my experience within the last 3 years. Meetings facility is empty at 4 p.m., no signs about the meeting in the outdoor area, and it took a while to find a guard to ask for questions, ask for directions. Public is not able to request an item to be placed on an agenda. Because of the limited access, only a handful of people were attending, maybe 5, including me. Next slide, please. I have a quick excerpt from the Government in the Sunshine Manual regarding location of meetings. Boards should not hold its meetings in facility where the public has limited access and where there may be a chilling effect on the public's willingness to attend by requiring the public to provide identification, to leave such identification while attending the meeting, and to request permission before entering the room. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yes, next slide. So what am I asking you to do? We need an accountable community cat trap, neuter, and release unit that works with our communities. We can't just rely on couple mom and pop organizations that may or may not have time to come into the community, or on seniors that are trying to take the matters in their own hands. We need a dedicated team of trappers fully equipped with a vehicle to transport these animals, set daily goals going forward, maybe an incentive program, plan on going into communities, set targets. Hire, please. Hire a vet to perform high-volume spay-neuter surgeries. It's not acceptable to operate a county shelter without having the key player on board. Proactive education about trap-neuter release with volunteers over the winter months. Create spay-neuter fund for public donations. DAS Advisory Board. Right now, the board is disconnected from the public and made changes that go against the purpose why it was created. Please look into those recent changes. Meetings should be widely advertised so public knows where it is, but also held at the local library or park facilities, especially when it's after 4 p.m. and this building here, it's just empty. Include members with finance and legal business background in the advisory board. We need to make sure that the processes implemented at DAS are economical and mirror the best practices in animal welfare. Meetings should be held monthly as per ordinance to generate public involvement. And DAS implement the best practice evidence-based approach by preventing cats overpopulation in the field and creating a robust trap, neuter, and return program. Thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez, I mean, you're very involved with DAS, as we all are at different levels. When did they move the DAS meetings to this building? I mean, commissioners don't normally attend the board meetings. I did when I initially was elected. I just wanted to know more about DAS, and the meetings were all down at DAS. When did they move them here? Because her comments have some merit. Those meetings were all robustly attended when they were down in DAS, although I don't know that that's a more convenient location. I mean, here, to her point, this building's empty at 4 o'clock, so there's plenty of parking, plenty of seating. You know, you get into the building, you're not fighting with anything. DAS was a little bit of a tight squeeze. Maybe the library is a better location, but when did they move from DAS to here? Has it been a bit?
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Dan Rodriguez, your Deputy County Manager. It probably happened about just over 6 months ago, if not a year ago, and that transpired out of the committee actually voting to have fewer meetings. As you know, over the last 2.5 years, DAS has aggressively addressed some of the issues at the facility as well as the operations, and the committee members decided to go from meeting their monthly meeting down to a quarter. And as part of that, there were a couple meetings that were heated, and there were a couple individuals in the audience of those meetings that had made some threatening statements. So it was decided to bring those to the government complex where it was a little more safe, secure environment. And so that's how they ended up here, Commissioner.
I was going to say, too, I mean, and it's more out of coincidence, I had sent a note to the DAS director just a couple of days ago because I wanted to put something in my newsletter that I'm about to release, and I asked about the veterinarian, and she said one actually had been hired. The one thing I will say, and maybe you could probably say it a bit more eloquently, but when we have heard a lot of people say, there's no vet, there's no vet, there's no vet. This board has voted to increase the salary to advertise for a vet, but there's not a lot of vets across the entire country. And so it's not a matter of we don't want a vet. As you said, the animals that need veterinarian service do go off-site so that we can ensure that they get it. But Ms. Perry recently told me that they hired not only one vet, but they have a second one coming in. Maybe you've got some more details so we can at least address a couple of these.
One of the fortunate things we have in the DAS committee is Dr. March. He is the president of the Veterinarians Association, and DAS relies on our local veterinarians for procedures and whatnot. But yes, we did hire a veterinarian in-house about 6 months ago, so we have one on staff, and we have another position that we're hiring for. And the goal is to have 2 full-time veterinarians to provide a best value solution, because it does get expensive to subcontract out to the local vets, though we do appreciate what they do for us at DAS.
Okay. I mean, I know public petitions are just speaking at the podium and us, digesting all that, but I don't know. Commissioner McDaniel's lit up. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, and a quick question of representation about the actual ordinance for the creation of the DAS Advisory Board. How long has it been since we touched that?
It's probably been a very long time since we've adjusted any ordinance relating to the committee,
Again, I'm not here to make the whip up work, but it certainly sounds like that could use a little loving.
My disappointment with the board, and I don't want it to sound like too negative, because I really do appreciate the people that have stepped forward. But to your point, ma'am, about more aggressive board members, and well, we can't make people join the board. And I know the last meeting I attended, they actually had board elections. I was flabbergasted at how few people wanted to be on the board. So a lot of animal lovers in Collier County, and maybe we did a bad job of advertising, for new board members. But I was shocked at how few people wanted to run again to be on the board, and just the small population. I think you might have even been at that meeting with me, Dan. And so, that would be something. There's a lot of merit and a lot of points that she brought up that have rebuttal, but also that have significant merit. And so,
if I could just comment on the communication, if you go to the DAS website, there's a phone number right on the front there, and you're familiar, and the commissioner's familiar with the staff out there. They have open communication. Myself, Tanya Williams are available, but also the committee members. I know many of them. They have my work cell phone. If there's any issues that come up that they can't handle or they need additional guidance, they contact us. So they're available. If you go to the DAS committee meetings, they ask for more input, and they just don't get a lot of participation. I think a lot of that has to do, from my experience, there's over 280 volunteers who have a voice. They're there at DAS, they're participating, and if any anomalies pop up or issues, they're quickly resolved by our director and her staff. I know the adoption coordinator, volunteer coordinator very well. She does an excellent job and has really helped to place animals. They have a very good, robust trapping program where if you do have an issue with cats, we've worked with many communities to get those strays in, get them spayed and neutered, and move them out. But we can certainly sit with Ms. Front and cover those items with her. And if there are areas of improvement, we're all about that.
Well, let's make sure we do. And the strength of public petition is for you to come here and raise points that you feel have merit, and we are agreeing that. I know some do. On the flip side, I knew a vet was hired 6 months ago, so maybe that's a little bit of old information. A volunteer actually sent me an email a few days ago saying something about why isn't there a vet, and then when I reached out and found out one was hired 6 months ago, the volunteer said, oh, well, I haven't volunteered in quite a while. I had just heard that. But let's make sure that we connect not only with the speaker, but, we go through the points. I have a couple commissioners still lit up. Commissioner McDaniel.
We're all done.
Yeah.
We're all
No,
done.
you say you petition, and we heard you, so trust me, a lot of homework assignments in there that won't disappear. Sir.
We're given direction now, so. It's come to my attention, we haven't touched this, relatively speaking, touched this ordinance since 2004 when it was originally created. There has been some very robust discussions in this room with regard to DAS at large and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So I'd like to be more specific with a little bit of loving and move that into the system as soon as possible. I know that there were some groups that were making some recommendations to the adjustments in the management of the animals, the care of the animals, so on and so forth, a while ago. And if that ordinance hasn't been touched in or amended since '04, then if that information's correct, it's past time.
Commissioner Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we get a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails concerning animals, stray animals, and how they're being treated. We get a lot of questions concerning operations at DAS. And we've had a couple agenda items over the past 6 or 8 months to deal with certain issues. But I think that Ms. Front raises some interesting questions, and I think we need to have an agenda item at a meeting to go over the ordinance, as Commissioner McDaniel has indicated, to see where we need to change that, but to provide more information about the operations at DES so the public has an understanding of that. I don't want the general public to go away from this meeting with the belief that we have thousands of stray cats that are just being neglected. I think that's a bad message. And so I'd like to suggest that we have an agenda item. Now, it may be a while before we can get this on the agenda.
Yeah.
And maybe our meeting in December, but I don't know what the November meeting looks like at this point.
up.
Yes, sir. I would suggest that December or January would be appropriate, only just because if we want to make sure that we have the time to really bring you a complete package of information, and the November agenda is filling up with items as we speak. So that gives the staff the time to collect the information needed.
Then I would suggest that we have the manager schedule a meeting at a time that she deems to be appropriate for this issue, advise Ms. Front of that scheduling, and just let the general public know that we're going to talk about DAS in this issue.
Yes, sir. That way we'll have a chance to meet with Ms. Front also, so that that will help us inform the information collection as well.
But quite a bit of what you brought up doesn't need to wait till December. I mean, if the web page needs updating, which I actually was recently to it, and I don't know what page that was, but I got all the information I needed. So maybe it's just a matter of there's multiple pages out there. If we hired a vet 6 months ago, maybe the main page should have a big picture of that vet in their bio and say, "Congratulations, welcome aboard, Dr. X." You know, so that folks that are going to the page we can separate rumor from fact. So there was quite a few things in there that I'm sure that you wrote down. Obviously, when we want to talk about the ordinance, that's going to have to be something at a formal meeting. But the other things, I'm sure you're writing those down, and Marcy does a great job down there. But there were some points brought up that could even make sure we do a much better job. So thank you, ma'am. Mission accomplished. And we have some things to aggressively address. Commissioner Colwell, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to, this will be like a public information little comment here. Just so anybody who takes it on their own to trap some of these cats, just be aware that if you do trap one and they have a notch cut in their ear, that means they've already been through the program, they've already been spaded and already been neutered and released back into the communities or colonies of the cats. So just let you know that, because I know some of these HOAs and they hire people to come in and catch some of these things within their gated communities. That make sure they're aware, and you guys are aware also, that, you know, those ones have already participated, so you're not redundantly overdoing, you know, working. You're paying money for somebody to come in and do these things. If you already have a colony, it's already been spaded or neutered. So just a little public information there.
That was a public service announcement from Commissioner Dan Cole, crocodile and cat hunter. You might catch his show on the Learning Channel. Thank you, sir. I've recently caught a cat that had 5 notches in its ears, so somebody obviously spent a lot of money. No, but that's obviously true.
Your cat was a better fighter.
Yeah, that cat was quite a fighter. Ms. Patterson, next.
Commissioners, that brings us to our 10 o'clock time certain. This is add-on item 10A. This is a recommendation that the board commits to providing the Collier County Sheriff all necessary resources to ensure the safety and security of all residents, visitors, schools, and places of worship during the ongoing conflict in Israel and Gaza. This item comes to the agenda at Commissioner Saunders' request.
Saunders, it's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure that I think Kevin Rambos, Sheriff Rambos, is going to be on Zoom.
I believe he is there, sir.
And I believe Colonel Bloom was going to be here as well, if I'm not mistaken. All right, maybe.
Yeah, I'm getting a nod that Colonel Bloom's not going to be able to be here, sir.
Okay, but Sheriff Rambos is on.
Yeah, I think he should be able to speak now, sir.
All right. Let me do a little bit of an introduction as to why I brought this. The purpose of this agenda is to basically assure the public that this commission is committed to providing any and all necessary resources to our Sheriff's Department to make sure that our visitors, our citizens, our institutions, our schools, our churches, and other religious institutions are well protected during these turbulent times. And I want to read a proclamation that the board adopted on October 25th, 2022. Just want to read a portion of it because I think it says a lot about where this board is and where this county staff is. One of the whereas is, whereas Collier County, Florida abhors bigotry, discrimination, prejudice, and all forms of hate against all people, regardless of faith, race, gender, creed, sexual orientation, or national origin. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Collier County, Florida condemns anti-Semitism in all forms and expressions, condemns all forms of discrimination, prejudice, and hate against any person or group of people regardless of faith, race, gender, creed, sexual orientation, or national origin, condemns any and all violence or use of violence for any purpose at any time, and resolves to actively and vigorously oppose, investigate, and prosecute to the fullest extent of the law any advocacy of violence, acts of violence, or crimes manifesting hatred against any person, property, or institution based on faith, race, gender, creed, sexual orientation, or national origin, and will prevent bigotry and provide sanctions and persecution or prosecution for any violations. So this was a resolution of the County Commission back in October of 2022. And I don't believe that the position of this commission and the county has changed one bit since that time. In reference to the activities at the state level, there's a special session of the legislature, and there are 3 or 4 items on the legislative agenda dealing with this issue of the violence and terrorism in the Middle East. One of the issues that will be considered by the legislature is support for Israel, formally expressing support for the state of Israel to exist as a sovereign and independent nation with the right to defend itself and protect its citizens from indiscriminate violence and terrorism, condemn the attack on Israel by Hamas, and ask for additional sanctions against terrorist regimes. Another part of that call of the legislature will be expanded sanctions against terrorist regimes. And then finally, and I think very important, additional security infrastructure to guard against anti-Semitic violence, hate crimes, provide at-risk institutions such as vulnerable Jewish day schools with additional security resources and infrastructure to keep our citizens safe. So the state of Florida is taking serious action to make sure that our citizens are safe, our institutions are safe at the state level, and the purpose of this is to make sure that we do the same thing at the local level. I've asked Sheriff Rambosk if he would provide just a little general information. He can't get into a whole lot of details on security issues, but a little detail on what the Sheriff's Department is doing to ensure protection of all of these institutions. And then at the end, Mr. Chairman, I do have a motion that I would like to make whereby we would direct our staff to make sure that the sheriff has all of the financial resources that are necessary. This is one of those situations where there could be increased security demands and needs that last for a long time. We're not talking about the same sort of a situation when we have a hurricane and we know that the sheriff is going to need more resources for a 30-day period or a 60-day period. This could be something that could last for quite a long time. Mr. Chairman, if Sheriff Rambosk is available, I'd like to hear his comments.
Good morning, Commission Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. First and foremost, thank you for your continued support in providing public safety funding in our community, and looking back at the resolution that you read from our community and what the state is in the process of doing right now. I know you are well aware that we have been engaged in this type of safety training and building of infrastructure for many years. But I would like to go over a little bit of that for our community so they have a better understanding of how we are able to keep our community safe, have the low crime rate we've had, and because it's all done with a proactive approach to reducing crime and violence. And we've been doing that for a while. We've got a variety of partnerships that make this work. It's with citizens, businesses, public safety partners, certainly our members, providing everything we can together as a group. And I include all of our first responders, fire rescue, EMS, who are all involved in this. And I'll talk a minute on Asher training, which they are a part of. But, you know, we do this in a variety of ways. We've included professional development training, specialized technologies. You provide dollars for specific equipment. When we look at the tragic events, both nationally and internationally, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's workplace violence, terrorism, hate crimes, active shooters. We always directly and diligently examine, review, and analyze any events that are going on around the country or the world to improve our tactics, our training, and our procedures. So we've been doing that for a long time, and that's one of the ways that we stay well out in front of what could potentially ever occur in our community. We've always had support through the Board of County Commission and through the community to enable us to invest in highly specialized training. And that's where we're a little bit different than many places in the country. The training that we have built into our process includes rapid response tactics, leadership training, and more importantly, problem solving in dynamic situations that are not just solely law enforcement related. And I think that's one of our strengths. You know, we continue to emphasize the need for the quickest and most efficient response to stop a threat. We go to the threat, period. That's in our policy. That's how we train. We continue to partner not only with public safety, but with our public schools, with mental health providers, and other providers throughout the community. And again, they let us know what is occurring in their communities. We're better able to then build safety protocols to respond to them. As far as the sheriff's office goes, you know, we've provided active shooter hostile event response, or the ASHER training that I mentioned before, to over 11,000 citizens of Collier County in the last decade. And unfortunately, you probably might remember that some of those who have been to those events have actually utilized that training in tragic events throughout the nation during active shooter situations. We've also conducted training with law enforcement, all of our public safety partners. And, you know, in the past 48 months, I've directed and positioned the agency to conduct more than 6,500 staff hours of ASHER-related training. And that is the preparation and the training is really what sets us apart. And we look at sessions that involve deputies, supervisors throughout the ranks, and we have interactive training and instruction from companies such as DECO, Power Consulting, the Ironclad staff, which is a Tier 1 Delta Special Operations training operation, U.S. Border Patrol Operations, or BORTAC Command, and the U.S. State Department for ASHER training. So we've gone well beyond what most agencies have gone. We've also contracted with a world-renowned counterterrorism advisor, and we've had him, fortunately, for many years, who's a subject matter expert in combating terrorism and tactics. We've formed a lot of partnerships and alliances outside of our community. One of the things that we did a few years ago was we joined with the NYPD Sentry program. That's an intelligence partnership. I actually went up to the intelligence unit up in New York to join that. We also are a part of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, Homeland Security Investigations, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and I sit on the Domestic Security Oversight Council for the state of Florida. So, you know, equally important to our formal partnerships, we have our faith-based community partnerships, our nonprofits, our businesses, and that's how we're able to serve them and be proactive against threats of hate crimes for everyone's safety. We've also, in 2016, created the agency's Counterterrorism Intelligence Bureau, or CTIB. That works as an internal threat management team. We focus on identification and disruption of individuals or any type of information that might lead to a potential problem. We have a regular flow of information between state, local, and national agencies. And these partnerships, and particularly CTIB, allows us to have a threat assessment process for individuals that could turn out to be large-scale events and operation problems for us. So we do a lot with them. You might have seen we just received since this event started, and well before, But since this event started, we've met with all of our faith-based organizations. We just got a response from Jeffrey Feld, President and CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater Naples, who was just thanking us for all the activities relative to this current event. But, you know, we've worked with them in the past on many things, whether it be threats or helping them design safety for their building. So we've made a long-term commitment to our entire community, as the resolution that Commissioner Saunders read, to ensure that everyone is treated equally, fairly, and is safe. So while we have no direct threats known to our community, I can tell you that we stand firm in preparation, training, resources, and technology that are going to keep our community safe, not only from terrorist or tragic events, but day-to-day crime and violence as well. So I thank the Board of County Commission for supporting our needs throughout the years. And thank you for bringing this up today and supporting what we may need in the future. And I will tell you, it is changing daily. So while I may not have a specific request today, I may certainly have one within the weeks to come.
Thank you, Sheriff Rambach. And again, the purpose of this is for the board to indicate that whatever resources you do need going forward, in addition to what we've already provided in the current budget, that those resources will be available to you. Could you comment just real quickly on school security? I know we have deputies in all of the schools. Are you looking to do any increased security as it relates to the school system? Because I have gotten some communication from the school district concerning this.
Yes, in fact, and we won't get into specifics, but immediately with these events unfolding internationally, we met with the superintendent. We increased security and staff full-time throughout the day, and we'll continue to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if there are any registered speakers. I will have a motion at the end.
Okay. Mr. Miller?
We have one registered speaker, Dr. Alan Minkin.
Good morning. I'm here today as a representative of Christians and Jews United Against Anti-Semitism in Naples. And I want to speak on behalf of Commissioner Saunders' recommendation and in appreciation of the many actions that this board has taken in the past and in appreciation of the vigorous law enforcement that exists in our county. The board is doing the right thing in acknowledging that the state of Israel has unrestricted right to defend itself and providing the resources to guarantee that all Collier County residents are safe in their schools, places of worship, and the public square. It's timely and appropriate as a response to the war crimes and atrocities that were committed in Israel on October 7th. It deserves our praise, and it deserves everyone's just total, unreserved support. Having said that, many of us were concerned long before the massacre that occurred. Many colleges were cesspools of anti-Semitism. Social media had become toxic. Violent attacks had taken place across the country. Downplayed by legacy media, reported anti-Semitic incidents had spiked to an all-time high nationally and had doubled in Florida between 2021 and 2022. We were not aware of any imminent threat, and we hoped for none, but we were worried that things could get rapidly worse. It seemed reasonable to us that a partnership of Christians and Jews might form a barrier to the rising tide of anti-Semitism. So we got together with the Jewish Federation of Greater Naples and began planning. Our initial conference will be at 7 p.m. November 30th at the Federation Building on Pine Ridge Road. I've provided the clerk with registration forms. I think we understand that anti-Semitism is just not a case of one hatred among many. Mobs on our campuses, in our cities, and across the world are not chanting death to blacks, death to Asians, or death to Muslims, Catholics, or Protestants. Anti-Semitism is toxic, it's ancient, it's insidious, and it requires our constant attention, and I thank you for that. Everyone's familiar with Justice Potter Stewart's famous comment about pornography, that he couldn't always define it, but he knew it when he saw it. Anti-Semitism is like that, but we have to recognize it. We have to do it to deal with it. The IHRA, International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism has been adopted as official policy by 1,000 agencies, 31 states, including Florida and the District of Columbia. It has been endorsed by 15 Florida cities and towns, as well as Miami-Dade and Palm Beach County. I've submitted a copy of it for your review and consideration. Thank you for the action that you're taking today, and thank you for the opportunity to address you.
That's all we have, sir.
And, Mr. Chairman, if there are no comments from the commission, then I will make a motion just to assure the sheriff that this commission will provide all of the financial resources necessary during this period of time, which could last indefinitely. So if there's a budget request during our budgets during this year, that we are committed to providing those funds. And also would ask the board to reaffirm the proclamation that we adopted on October 25th, 2022, that I read into the record. So that's the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Third.
Got a motion from Commissioner McDaniel, a second from all of us. On the record, I'll just say Commissioner McDaniel. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passage unanimously.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner Saunders.
Commissioners,
Thank you.
Break.
Commissioners, we do have a second public petition. I'd recommend the order go like this. Let's take the second public petition from Mr. Lauer. He has been here since early this morning. Take a court reporter break, and then start our 10:30 time certain for Ascend.
Absolutely.
All right. So item 6B is a public petition by Douglas Lauer on local enforcement of Occupational Safety and Health Administration, Florida Department of Transportation, and Environmental Protection Agency regulations.
Good morning. My name's Douglas Lower. I'm a professional engineer registered in Florida. I'm afraid my presentation is going to pale in comparison to the sheriff's, but I hope I can keep you awake. I'm here about the different codes that are being enforced in different methods throughout the county. Today, I would like to speak on just the Vanderbilt Beach Road Extension Project. There's 4 items that had to do with that, one of which is the silt fence. And silt fence may not seem like a major item to a lot of people, but the codes become manuals, the manuals become legislation and are passed. There's something called the Manual for Sediment Control and Soil Erosion, 318 pages long, gives all the different ways silt fence and everything's supposed to be done. And those are usually incorporated by the engineers that do the design directly onto their plans, which in this case was the case for Vanderbilt Beach Road Extension. And the size stake that's required for silt fence is this. The contractor put in these. I notified Growth Management and Transportation in, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, that this is what was going on, and they kept putting them in. Now, That may not seem like a big item to the public, but from a taxpayer's point of view, that's a $750,000 draw item. There is 252,000 lineal feet of silt fence, which is 48.3 miles. There would be 42,000 stakes that are wrong. Now, these stakes are put in for a longer period of time because that's a larger project. It's an environmentally sensitive area. There's 4,000 lineal feet of the roadway against a canal. And next year, you get a big storm, these guys are going to break sitting in the Florida sun, and you're going to have sediment rolling straight into the canal. That's the reason that the state and Collier County has decided that this is the size stake because Collier County has codified the manual. And I don't understand why we aren't using these stakes, why we're still paying the contractor to put in these stakes after I've sent well, not hundreds, but probably 40 or 50 emails, sent pictures, and talked to the engineer of record working for the county under the transportation department, and Mr. I believe his name's White. And he said that they were just going to go ahead and do it. They didn't care. I think the environmental area would care when they start collapsing. There's another clause in the in the manual that says that you're supposed to put up the silt fence prior to any construction, any filling. And I got more pictures. I got a lot of pictures. I got more pictures of 4,000 feet of canal with no silt fence at all on it, already been cleared, and bringing in fill and collapses of the bank into the canal. Obviously, that's a public health issue, and I'm concerned about it. I think anybody on the board would be concerned from a public health standpoint. I'd also be concerned about what happened to that $750,000 because since the contractor didn't do what he was supposed to do, and Mr. White and the transportation department and growth management all knew that he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, and he still got paid, and he still got paid last month for draw items that have to do with this. I would think that would be something the county has jurisdiction over to at least look into. There's a corollary issue that has to do with sediment control also. Any place that there is and this has to do with the Vanderbilt Beach project, road extension project again, any area that trucks move from the construction site onto any kind of public county local road, they're supposed to have something put in called a soil prevention device. I don't know how many are supposed to be on the Vanderbilt Beach project. I've looked at least a dozen of them, and it's pretty simple to put these things in. You clear the entrance, you throw some fabric down, and you cover it with stone. And as the trucks come over, the stone knocks the dirt off so you don't get it tracked down the road. And you got to clean that every so often so that the dirt stays off the road. There's not one been put in anywhere on the project. And I've driven lots of miles to check. I would think that sediment getting onto our highways is Collier County. That's going to cost the county taxpayers money to clean up because the contractor obviously isn't doing it. And wherever these entrances are, you're supposed to have a special silt fence across the ditch that doesn't let the sediment from that fell off the tires to get to the ditches. And every single one that I looked at, the flap for the silt fence was just laying there, and the silt was just running out underneath it. The state spent millions and millions of dollars on a manual, soil and erosion control. You all, somewhere in one of your laws, codified it, made it part of your system. If you're not going to pay any attention to it, and it's costing the taxpayers money, I don't see how you're going to fix this. You can't say that you can't pass an amendment to the contract stating we're going to accept these on this particular job, because this is what the code that you use calls for. And to go back and change it now is going to be very expensive. 42,000 of these. Anyhow, moving on to subject number 3. In January, there were signage put up for the construction that was being done at the corner of Collier and Vanderbilt Beach Road. One of the requirements is that a temporary traffic control plan be put on record. It was put on record. It was signed by an engineer, and the signs were installed end of December, January, and this is just what I looked at was just in the area of Collier Boulevard and Vanderbilt Beach Road. There were 24 signs erected. All 24 were in the wrong place. And I'm not talking a little bit. Many of them were 600 to 1,000 feet out. I called Mr. White up, sent out my letters, got no response. Everybody stopped talking to me. But in April, and I found this out on a website called Nextdoor on the computer, it said that there was a really bad accident at the corner of Collier Boulevard and Vanderbilt Beach Road. And it was between a pool truck who was apparently sighted and a woman who was in the hospital with massive back problems. Now, this has been going on for 3 months, but the funny thing is, within 4 days, all the signs that were in the wrong place were moved to the right place. I think that's an indication they know this was not the right thing. I asked to get in touch with her so that she could make so she'd at least know that the county had signs in the wrong place and was completely thwarted. Nobody would help me. So what I did, jurisdictionally, I would ask that the board find somebody to get a message to her, the pool guy, and their attorneys that the county has some fault in this, or maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I think this is much like a prosecutor withholding defense evidence from the defense people.
Stand by, sir. Commissioner Saunders has a comment or question.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I met with Mr. Lauer, I want to say at the middle or late part of August. It's been a little while, and you raised the issue of those stakes. I did mention that to staff, but I think that I guess the message I would get to staff is that if the contractor is saving $750,000, and I'm just using your number, is saving a very substantial amount of money by not complying with the contract, that savings needs to come back to us, not to the contractor. And so I would ask our staff to look into that, because that's significant. The other issues, I can't really comment on those right now. But you did raise that, and I would like staff to make sure that we're not being taken advantage of by the contractor. And I know Ms. Kenzel, the lady that keeps an eye on the purse, would like to know that as well. So that's just a request of our staff to make sure we're not being shortchanged there in that.
Well, the 750,000 is the draw item in the contract.
Right. So I know there's a difference between the price of those two, and it's less than 750,000. But
Well, I don't know how you can keep put these in because they're going to collapse.
so that's something that we should look into, or at least have the board, the staff, let us know that we're not being taken advantage of there.
No,
that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Sir, you're out of time, but I'll give you do you have a last closing comment or anything? I don't want to cut you off prematurely, but you're out of time, but I'll allow you
There's
a
one other
closing
item
statement.
that I covered with Commissioner Saunders, and that was about compaction under the Vanderbilt Beach Road. It has to be put in layers. I gave him a long dissertation on it, so he can cover it for you. But the fill that's being brought in is just being thrown down, and it's in a fluff type thing. If you don't compact the other layers coming up, it's going to collapse, and the road's going to collapse, and the Public Utilities Commission, the public utilities for Collier County, is going to start paying massive amounts out for road fixing after about 2 years, rather than a road that's going to last 12 to 15 years, which is what the taxpayers are paying for.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no
Want to
no clapping.
take a break till, I mean, it's 11. We got a large crowd here. I always add a few minutes because people need to use restrooms, and they're small restrooms up here. So why don't we come back right at 11?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. just heard everything. Yeah, I replied to you. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for
Chair.
your service, my friend.
Chair, you have a live mic.
I asked everybody to please sit down so we can start on time. Thank you.
Commissioners, this brings us to our 10:30 time certain, and this is companion items 9A and 9B. Item 9A is a recommendation to approve a rezoning ordinance for Ascend Naples RPUD to allow up to 208 multifamily rental units, 71 of which will be restricted as affordable on 17.5 plus minus acres of property located on the south side of Vanderbilt Beach Road, approximately 1/2 mile east of Logan Boulevard, in Section 4, Township 49 South, Range 26 East, Collier County, Florida. This is a companion item to item 9B, which is a recommendation to approve and transmit to the Florida Department of Commerce a small-scale growth management plan amendment ordinance creating the Vanderbilt Beach Road residential subdistrict to allow up to 208 multifamily rental units, 71 of which will be restricted as affordable on 17.5 plus minus acres of property located on the south side of Vanderbilt Beach Road, approximately 1/2 mile east of Logan Boulevard in Section 4, Township 49 South, Range 26 East, Collier County, Florida. First, we'll do the ex parte disclosure by the commissioners, and then everyone will need to be sworn in.
Okay, Commissioner Cole, do you have ex parte on this one, please?
Yes, I do. I have meetings, correspondence, and emails.
Okay, Commissioner Saunders?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have the correspondence, meetings, and emails as well.
Okay, Commissioner Hall?
Meetings, correspondence, emails, and calls.
Okay, Commissioner McDaniel?
Correct. Meetings, correspondence, emails, and calls.
Yeah, and same for me, meetings, correspondence, emails, and calls. Thank you. Okay, proceed.
Everyone that will be participating needs to stand up, please, and be sworn in by the court reporter.
That does include if you're a registered public speaker.
Mr. Ivanovich?
Thank you. Okay. Good morning. For the record, Rich Ivanovich on behalf of the applicant. With me today, I have Greg Fusaro and David Bastos from CIG Communities. Myself, Patrick Van Ness is our planner. Josh Fruth is our engineering consultant. We have someone from Earth Tech Environmental to talk about any environmental issues you may have, and Norm Trebilcock is our transportation consultant. As you are aware, we're here for two requests to enable a 208-unit, I'll call it a mixture of affordable and market rate units, to be built on 17.5 acres. As the county manager mentioned, we have 34% of the 208 units income restricted. That's the highest percentage to date of income restricted units in Collier County. Before that, the highest number of units was 30%, and that is for the same client who did a attainable project on Immokalee Road. So you have a developer who is committed to Collier County and is not what some people have said is a carpetbagger just coming here to make a buck in Collier County. The project also requires a rezone to the Ascend Naples RPUD. Prior to submitting the PUD, we learned some lessons from another project that was going forward on Vanderbilt Beach Road at the corner of Vanderbilt Beach and Collier Boulevard. And as a result from that, that project came in at 4 stories. We have come in at 2 stories, which is consistent with the heights allowed in the neighborhood on both sides of the street. We are removing the property from the estate's growth management plan element, and we are moving it into the urban area as part of our request. The property is on Vanderbilt Beach Road, about a half a mile from Logan Boulevard. It's 4 parcels consisting of those 17.5 acres. The current future land use designation is estates, Golden Gate Area Master Plan. It's part of the urban estates. It's not part of the rural estates. You all, a few years back, made a distinction between the urban estates and the rural estates. And the current zoning is estates as well. The property has one vacant single-family home on it to date. This is the location of the property. As you can see, it is adjacent to the urban area. It is directly across from Island Walk, which for some of you, you may not know, it's a development of regional impact. So it is a large residential project in the urban area. You could see also all the way across from Vanderbilt, from basically Logan to Collier Boulevard, it's urban area, and on the corner, Troy, there we go. On the corner, you have a commercial development, and commercial development along the frontage here. So the location of this property is essentially in the urban area. Historically, the urban area has been from Collier Boulevard west, when the rural area has been from 1 mile east of Collier Boulevard further east. You'll hear from us fairly early and often in our presentation that there has been some misinformation out there when this project is being spoken about in the public. I want to correct, or not correct, I want to put on the record and clarify on the record that we're not building any 400 square foot units. What we are building is the studios, and we can put this in the development standards table if you would like us to. The studios will be a minimum of 575 square feet. The single family will be, the minimum one bedroom will be 675 square feet. The 2 bedrooms will be 1,000 square feet, and the three bedrooms will be 1,300 square feet. That is what the market wants, and that is what we will be providing to the market for people who want to live in Collier County and live in attainable first-rate units. Second, approving this project is not a precedent. You can ask your county attorney, every land use decision you make is unique, and it's not going to result in a proliferation of apartment complexes throughout the estates. You will look at each project on a case-by-case basis, and you will evaluate the location of that project on a case-by-case basis and decide whether or not it makes sense to allow an apartment complex with 34% attainable units to be located on a piece of property. Mr. Van Ness will go through the details of the project and how we're compatible with what's around us and how and the basis for why your planning commission recommended approval and why your staff is recommending approval. I do want to point out that historically, in the estates, on the fringes of the estates, non-residential, more intense uses has been recognized and permitted through growth management plan amendments in the past. This is Immokalee Road by Oaks Boulevard, and you can see essentially in the green, that first row, back to the first local street, has been developed with non-residential uses with higher intensity than 1 unit per 2¼ acres. So the Golden Gate Estates Master Plan has been amended in the past to provide services on the fringes of the estates. There's a distinction from if we were asking for an affordable housing project or any apartment complex in the insides of the estates, we wouldn't be here. We're not asking for that. What we're asking for is a project that is located on a major road. It has no access whatsoever to a local road. It is 208 luxury rental units. Every one of the units will have the same fit and finishes. 30% will be set aside as follows: 15% serving, or 31 units serving 100% of the AMI and below, and 15% or 31 units will be serving 80% or below of the median income in Collier County. And an additional 9 units per acre will be at 20% or below of the median income. And that is a result of the Live Local Act, allowing for some tax breaks for providing income-restricted housing. But candidly, as you'll hear from Mr. Fasaro, it's being eaten up by additional costs and insurance costs associated with the property, but it does help the project remain viable. As I mentioned earlier, my client has provided the highest percentage of income-restricted attainable housing to date in Collier County, and will continue to do so in this project. I don't think there's any question with regard to the need for attainable housing in Collier County. You can see it every day if you're driving north on I-75 in the morning or south in the afternoon, the influx of people who are coming to Collier County to work because they can't live here. There's no mystery that people who are earning the median income in Collier County, which is $100,000 for a family of 4, can't afford a home in Collier County. Rents have gone up over 20%, construction costs have gone up, and insurance costs have nearly tripled since the Aspire project started doing its underwriting as it went through this process that I'm sure will carry forward to Ascend in the future for purposes of what it's going to cost. And I'm sure you are all aware that that is the #1 issue for identified in the Collier County Community Assessment by the Schultz Family Foundation is attainable housing in Collier County. I'll briefly go over some statistics, and I'm sure Cormac Giblin can fill you with many, many more statistics. But by way of example, the county built a project on Santa Barbara, I believe it's the Bembridge project. It was 82 units. And what we've been told is it had over 300 applications for those units in the first week. And now there's a tremendous waiting list for those units. So there's no question that there is a need for affordable housing, and we would be providing 71 more units as part of this project. Commute times vary from, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour each way to come to work in Collier County. Approximately 17.4% of our workforce commutes. That's 40,000 people. And they commute from, obviously, surrounding counties and some as far as Broward and Dade counties as part of their job commute to work. Candidly, we've heard a lot of comments about how great a place Collier County is to live, because we are. We provide the highest level of services throughout. Collier County Services, our school district is top-notch. But the reality is the school system and other employers, the hospitals, are having trouble attaining workers to take care of us when we need to be taken care of or take care of our kids as they're going through school. These are some of the letters of support that we've received for part of this project, and you can see it comes from all different types of employers in Collier County, some big, some small, from some people who serve in multiple functions, like Julie Smelsley. She is, I guess, the president of the chamber. She's a volunteer for the Chamber of Commerce. But she's also a resident of the estate. She lives in the Logan Woods community. And she has sent you a letter as a resident of the estates advocating for an affordable income attainable project within the estates and specifically on this parcel of property. You've received letters from the Naples Community Hospital, and I'll quote a part of that. It says, NCH has experienced situations where we'll make an offer of employment for nurses or allied health care positions, only to have candidates unable to accept due to the high cost of housing in our region. At every level of staffing, we face challenges with workforce housing for our dedicated staff. Factoring in all other sectors of our regional workforce, you hear time and time again, employers are unable to fill vacant positions. Collier County Public Schools states current and prospective employees must be confident in their ability to find affordable housing that will meet their needs and the needs of their family. This has become harder for our employees in the past years. We have employees, including teachers, who have worked with us for a few years who leave due to the rise in rents in the area, which currently outpaces their income. You have Dan Lavender from Moorings Park state every year it gets more difficult for employers like Moorings Park to attract and retain talent to continue to make Naples, Florida a premier service environment for all. Nearly every month now we have a few great employees who love their job and love Naples resign and head back north where they can find more affordable housing. These are communities where there are income-restricted housing, and we are identifying the location of our parcel. As you can see, right now, there are no income-restricted, affordable, attainable density bonus projects in the urban estates. In fact, you recently transmitted a growth management plan amendment to the state to review, which would increase the maximum donation you can ask for in the urban area to 25 units per acre. You adopted an amendment to the Rural Fringe Mixed Use District, amendment for that growth management plan area, to allow for a request up to 12.2 dwelling units per acre. And I would point out that the density allowed in the Rural Fringe Mixed Use District is 1 unit per 5 acre, which is half the density allowed for in the estates. And in the rural land stewardship area, you recently mandated, as part of any village or town, that 2.5% of the land within that SRA include affordable housing at 10 units per acre. The only area in Collier County where you don't have a right to request a density bonus for affordable housing is the estates. We have to do a growth management plan amendment every time we would like to request an affordable housing density bonus as part of this process. We're asking for 11.9 units per acre on this parcel of property, which is consistent with other areas in Collier County. This is the right community in the right location, despite the hecklers that are in the audience. This is a problem throughout Collier County. It's not local to the urban area, it's not local to the Rural Fringe Mixed Use District, and it's not local to the RLSA. Pat will take you through the details of our community that we're proposing. He will show you how it's compatible with the community around us. Both your staff is recommending approval, and both the Collier County Planning Commission recommended approval. At the conclusion of our presentation, we will be asking you to approve both the Growth Management Plan Amendment and the PUD for this particular parcel of land and allow this community to go forward. And with that, those are our opening comments. Unless you have some comments or questions, I'll turn it over to Mr. Van Hess.
Good morning. As Rich mentioned, my name is Patrick Van Ness. I'm a certified planner with the Neighborhood Company. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about these two petitions before you. My job today is to address planning and zoning issues related to those petitions. And more specifically, it's to show how this project, this community, is the right community in the right place. And as Rich mentioned, what we're asking for is a community of 208 residential luxury rental units, of which 34% will provide affordable or attainable housing. So in order to address this right community in the right place, I'm going to look at three major issues. I'm going to look at location, at the density that is being requested, and the compatibility. And in doing so, we'll look at the project details, and we're going to look at design choices that were made for this project. We're going to look at the surrounding context. So when we look at location, it's not just where it is on a given road, but what is surrounding it, what the other uses are around that property. And also, last but not least, we are going to talk a little more about housing needs and affordable housing issues in the county. So if you look at this map, this is the subject property identified in red, 17.5 acres. It is located along Vanderbilt Beach Road, approximately half a mile from Logan. To the north of the subject property, we have a 6-lane divided major arterial. Beyond that, we have the Island Walk community, which is a residential community of over 2,000 units. It has both residential and multifamily units in there. To the south of us, we have Cherrywood Drive. Beyond Cherrywood Drive, we have rural estate, urban estate lots. And to the east of us, we have the cemetery and mausoleum. Just to point out also, this is identified in yellow, and it is within the urban mixed-use future land use category. And then to the west of us, we have one abutting single-family home, and beyond that, we have rural estate lots. So what is also important to look at when we look at the location is the surrounding context. Everything that is in yellow is urban mixed use, and that is significant because the urban mixed use future land use category is where we allow for greater densities and greater intensities in the county. As Rich pointed out, when we go to the intersection, we do have some commercial and mix of uses. The commercial on the northern side of the intersection allows for up to 440,000 square feet of commercial. And on the southern side, it allows for approximately 42,000 square feet of commercial also. So there are a mix of uses surrounding the property. Those are the areas also where we have urban infrastructure and urban services. That means we have water and sewer for the property. We have a roadway with sufficient capacity. And the urban areas are also the areas where we've got our employment, shopping, dining, and entertainment. And if we look at our next slide, this shows you the future land use map of Collier County. Again, everything in yellow is urban. There, you can see that the estates designation is in brown. Some of that estates designation is within the urban area. 951 is your demarcation between the urban area and the rural area. And while there is some estate future land use category within the urban area, it's important to note that that happens because it's because of historical conditions. Those were pre-platted lots, and the county has honored and protected those areas. But what's important to note is those areas in the urban estates are surrounded by the yellow, the urban areas. And even though they are surrounded by a sea of yellow, they've maintained their integrity. And you do have more intense uses, you have commercial uses on the periphery and along major roadways. And I think that's important to note. We're not suggesting that we put this project within a residential neighborhood. It is on the periphery, it will be buffered, and we will ensure compatibility. So if we look at the next map, this is from the urban Golden Estates in the Golden Gate Area Master Plan. Future land use map shows the urban estates in the orange color. Again, surrounded by urban uses. And I'd like to point out that if you take a residential neighborhood like the Oaks neighborhood, very desirable location, and property values have done extremely well in that area, and they are surrounded by urban uses. And again, I think those uses, when done right, can be compatible and complementary to that neighborhood. And part of the reason why that neighborhood has done so well from a real estate standpoint is it is in close proximity to the urban area. It's close to services, and it's close to dining, retail, entertainment. Also like to point out on this slide that when the Golden Gate Area Master Plan was updated in 2019, 3 distinct areas were identified in that master plan. There was the Golden Gate City, which is a very urban and undisputed urban area, the urban Golden Gate Estates, and the rural Golden Gate Estates. Again, demarcation between the urban and rural is 951. Also, the urban Golden Gate Estate sub-element does call for a mix of uses where appropriate. And again, where is that appropriate? On the periphery of those residential neighborhoods, on major roads, or at intersection of major roads. And what you have there is a list of all different nodes that are allowed to have these mix of uses and these commercial uses within the estates. Next subject I want to talk about is the density we're requesting and the need for affordable or attainable housing. The reason we're asking for 11.9 units per acre is simply to make this project feasible. If not for that density, we just could not provide the level of affordable housing that is being provided. As Rich mentioned, that level is 34% of the units, which is a significant amount for a single project. And again, it's located in an area of the county where there is no such market rate project providing affordable housing. It's also in an area where we have a lot of employment. So there is a need for affordable housing in that area. And also, we've demonstrated that through our application. We provided a needs analysis. Staff has reviewed it, supports the conclusion drawn from that analysis. Also, I'd like to point out that the applicant is going to give priority to essential service personnel. So essential service personnel are nurses, teachers, firefighters, law enforcement officers, public employees. Again, as Rich mentioned, those are the people that serve us as residents and are essential to our county. Moving on to the next slide, just pointing out some of the numerous studies and support for affordable housing. Again, as Rich mentioned, I think this issue is undisputed, but going back to the ULI study that was done several years ago, it kind of set the groundwork for this extreme need for affordable housing and the need for the county to take action and be supportive of projects that come forward with affordable housing. And as Rich mentioned, we've seen changes to the comp plan, bonuses with the rural fringe mixed-use district to allow for greater densities to make these projects feasible. Rich also touched upon the most recent Collier County assessment study that came out just a few weeks ago. This was a survey sent out to the residents. Over 65% of the respondents said that controlling housing costs was the top priority for the county. That's in contrast to only 45% of the respondents in 2017, 2018. So I think it shows that this is an ongoing issue in the county. But again, the acceleration of the cost of housing is exponential, practically. And then also, what another finding was that 77% of the respondents disagree that residents in their neighborhood have access to affordable housing. The other thing to point out is that this was consistent throughout every zip code in the county. So with that said, I'm going to start talking about details of the plan development and how we've designed the plan development and the project to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. This is a copy of the master plan. Just a few quick things to point out here, and I'll go into more detail on some other slides, is that we've oriented the project fully towards Vanderbilt Beach Road, where we abut residential neighborhoods. We have provided some existing vegetation, some buffering, and some landscaping to supplement that buffering to make sure that we have ample screening to those properties. Quick summary of the request. As we mentioned, 208 units, 71 of those will be income restricted. The amenity center will consist of a clubhouse and some other recreational uses. Clubhouse will be a maximum of 12,000 square feet. We will be providing 60% of open space. Our preserve exceeds the county requirement with 2.35 acres of preserve, and we have numerous commitments within the PUD associated with landscaping and buffering, lighting to provide dark skies lighting, architectural, consistent architectural theme, and I'll go into the detail of what the buildings look like and the scale of those buildings. Obviously, the housing affordability. And then since CCPC, we've added a few additional conditions associated with fencing inside of our preserves, also with the dumpster locations for the community being located close to Vanderbilt Beach Road, away from budding residential, and the parking to be distributed throughout the entire community, not clustered towards the south end, anywhere close to Cherrywood Drive. So when it comes to ensuring compatibility, these are some of the items that we have to take in consideration as planners. The overall location, the orientation, the buffering, the setbacks, the preserves, the architecture, access, and walls, fences surrounding the property, and also the development standards that we provide, and I'll go through those. So quickly, we've already talked about location, but important things to point out: west of 951 along a major road with capacity, with central water and sewer, within urban area of the county, surrounded by urban designated lands, and close to urban centers with significant employment. If you look at this exhibit, the subject property is smack in the middle of those concentric circles. Those are 1 mile contours. Within 3 miles, we have parks, fire stations, hospitals, schools, and as mentioned, all level of urban services and infrastructure. With regards to overall design, we carefully looked at the site, and again, being on the periphery of a residential neighborhood, we made sure that we buffered away from the residents and that we oriented the project towards Vanderbilt Beach Road. The only access to the project will be via Vanderbilt Beach Road, with one primary access that will be gated. There's going to be a turn lane associated with that, and we're going to have a secondary access for emergency access only, also along Vanderbilt Beach Road. Absolutely no access, vehicular, pedestrian, bicycle access, no access whatsoever onto Cherrywood Drive. And as you can see, the green areas are the preserves and the buffering. So a little more detail about those separations, buffers, and setbacks. So if we look towards Island Walk, the separation from our closest structure to the closest home is over 360 feet. On the south side, our closest structure to the closest home is over 210 feet. To the west, that separation is approximately 135 feet, and from the cemetery and the structures there, over 500 feet. So from a buffering standpoint, On the north side, we're providing an enhanced 25-foot buffer. That enhanced 25-foot buffer is consistent with what's required for commercial projects in the estates. We're less intense in commercial, we're residential, but we will provide that same buffer that a commercial project has to provide. That's a 25-foot enhanced buffer. On the south side, we've got our preserve, and we're going to try to keep as much of the existing vegetation as possible. If we need to supplement that, that preserve to create more opacity, those are conditions from the county, and we'll follow county regulations associated with that. But that's a 50-foot buffer. On the west side, again, we're preserving vegetation and creating a buffer of 75 feet. And on the east side, we have a 30-foot drainage easement, and then after that, that'll be vegetated green area. And then we have a 10-foot enhanced buffer on that side. Just to compare that to county standard requirements, between multifamily and single family, typically the requirement is for a 15-foot type B buffer. We far exceed that. Standard zoning, industrial, abutting, residential, the standard buffer is 20 foot, a 20-foot type C buffer. We far exceed that. In the Golden Gate area master plan, when commercial directly abuts residential, the requirement is for 50-foot retained native vegetation with an extra 25 feet of no parking. We meet and exceed that. And again, we're not commercial, we are residential, we are less intense than those requirements. From a setback standpoint, to the north, we are providing a 50-foot setback. On the south side, we are providing a setback of 110 feet. And to the west, 80 feet, 45 feet to the east. Setback requirements in the Golden Gate area master plan. 75 feet when commercial directly abutting residential. Again, we're not commercial and we meet or exceed that. So the next few slides are line of sight exhibits from all sides of the projects. And I'll start with this one, which is line of sight, what the view would look like from Island Walk. So it's looking north to south at the subject property. So Island Walk is located over 360 feet away. That's from the closest home. On their side of the project, they've got their own buffer. We have in the middle Vanderbilt Beach Road, which is a 230-foot right-of-way. And then on our side, we are going to have our 25-foot enhanced buffer. So as you can see, there's going to be vegetation screening the project, and I doubt the folks at Island Walk will see any of the structures on our property. Next slide shows line of sight from the south. So we looked at all the properties along Cherrywood Drive. Those are large estate lots. So the setback for these various homes vary quite a bit. The closest one has a setback of about 95 to 100 feet. And most of those residences have significant vegetation in their front yard. So this depicts the vegetation in the typical front yard, followed by the 20-foot right-of-way. And then we have a 30-foot right-of-way easement. That's right now is a vegetated swale with some taller vegetation. Unless the county goes in to make any improvements to the roadway, that's going to stay in place. And beyond that, we have our 50-foot buffer. After the 50-foot buffer, we have stormwater area for the project, and then we have our first structure. So there's going to be significant screening, separation, and there's going to be over 110 feet of just either right-of-way easement, preserve, and water management area, creating that green space and that buffering. This is a view from the west. As mentioned, there's one single-family home directly abutting us. They've got about plus or minus 40 feet of vegetation on their property. That's followed by 75 feet of buffering preserve on our side. We've got a strip of 6 feet landscaping after that, and the overall separation from our closest property is over 135 feet, of which about 120 feet is vegetated. So again, lots of screening, lots of buffering. This last one, quickly, closest building on the cemetery side is about 500 feet away. They've got their buffering, their vegetation on their side. We're going to have the drainage swale followed by our 10-foot enhanced buffer. So again, plenty of separation, plenty of buffering on that side. Next thing I want to talk about is the architecture and a new housing concept for this project. The concept they're bringing in is what they call the big home concept. So these are multifamily units that are meant to look like large luxury homes. Again, the idea was to keep the scale and keep the look consistent with the estates. And the architecture for this will be kind of a modern farmhouse vernacular. The buildings will be no more than 2 stories and a maximum zone height of 35 feet. That's consistent with standard residential districts in Collier County. All the units will be very well appointed. These are luxury units, and I think sometimes people find it a little weird that you're going to provide affordable housing, and this is a luxury product and a luxury community. And the reason why they can provide that affordable housing component is they get a good price point per square feet on their other units. And they get that because these are high-quality units with some very nice amenities for the residents. From an access standpoint, I mentioned it, absolutely no access onto Cherrywood Drive, all access onto Vanderbilt Beach Road. Other quick site consideration that I've mentioned, 60% open space. We will have a variety of amenities. We've got the lighting, the dark skies compliant lighting. We have a unified architectural theme. Stormwater will be fully controlled and managed on site. This project is going to have to go through some stringent permitting with the Water Management District and also with Collier County, and will meet all county state requirements. From a development standard standpoint, I'm not going to go through all these, but what I want to point out is the area highlighted in yellow. That is the maximum height of 35 feet and a maximum of 2 stories. And real quickly, before I turn things over to Greg Fusaro, who is representing the applicant, from a transportation standpoint, we submitted a TIS. Your staff has carefully reviewed that. They concur with the findings and support the TIS that was provided, and finding of sufficient capacity on the roadway. As part of the PUD, there will be a trip cap, and the trip cap will be 110 two-way PM peak hour trips. And also want to point out that the client will be paying impact fees for any potential mitigation or future operational or capacity improvements that may be needed. So with that said, I will turn things over to Greg, who's going to talk about housing and viability and feasibility of the project.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Greg Fusaro. I'm a partner with CIG Communities, and my partner Dave Bastos is here with me this morning. Rich and Patrick have done, I think, a great job of giving you a kind of an overview and all the specifics of the development that we're proposing. I think what's really important, and I know somebody said to me, we don't want to have just a need for affordable housing driving any development. There's no question that need is here, and I'm going to let people who are within staff who know that better than I, because they're faced with it every day of the week. And so if even taking that away, I think the point that I want to convey to you is, first of all, both Dave and I have places here in Collier County. We're members of the chamber. We're committed to Collier County. We have a fabulous development that we just started. We broke ground on about a month ago on Immokalee. A little bit of a different site and a little bit a different product. And the reason there are differences is because they are different locations. And I think the two key things that we have looked at from day one are how can we be compatible and how can we complement the existing area. And we also made sure that we were focused in a location that provided not only utilities but the roadway system that could handle what we had proposed. At the end of the day, what we're providing are homes. We're providing homes for county workers, for your son's teacher, for nurses, for policemen, for firefighters, and we're providing homes for young professionals and others who can and want to live in Collier County, but don't necessarily be maybe in one area of the county, but want to be in another area closer to where they work. But at the end of the day, we're providing homes, and these are brand new. The cost to build a unit today is astronomical. But that's what it takes in order to provide the amenities and the finishes and the quality that we want to deliver and that we know the county wants to see us do. We're building a really high-end product, and we're also, as kind of a carrot on the cake, committing to a certain percentage of those to those essential services personnel that are having such difficulties living in the area that they work. But the key is, again, these are homes. These are homes for kids that are getting out of college. Probably everyone in here has lived in an apartment at one point in their life. And our aim is to provide great homes for those people, whether they're just starting out and have an affordability issue, whether they're an empty nester that's decided to downsize from a larger single-family home or in another area where the expenses of operating and owning that residence is become unattainable for them. So I think the key at the base here is, what are we providing? We're providing homes for a lot of people. Second of all, what have we done to complement and be compatible with the neighborhood? We've totally changed our architectural design because we've been responsive to what is around us in the neighborhood. We've agreed to do fencing around the development, and frankly, more for our protection than those in the neighborhood. We've agreed to do buffers that are significantly larger than we've seen in any other development. We've also directed all of our traffic, whether it's pedestrian, bicycle, or vehicular, onto Vanderbilt Beach Road and only onto Vanderbilt Beach Road. We're doing a decel lane and a right turn lane into the development to reduce the traffic impact. We've also been asked by staff, and which we're committed to, we're going to build a U-turn lane in the median so that people that want to go west on Vanderbilt Beach Road have the ability to do that. Architecturally, I think what we're going to do is totally exciting. We're really excited about it. Cormac, some of the other staff can tell you what the need is, and I don't think this is just for attainable and ESP units. There is a tremendous need, and it needs to be dispersed throughout the county. One person had made a comment, and I'll just give you an idea of where the bias comes in. This person was concerned about the kind of residents that apartments could attract. They're not going to be good neighbors. I know it. Well, I think all of you have lived in an apartment at one point or time. I certainly have. I'm hoping that it doesn't make me a bad person. And I think it's our responsibility to provide good, secure, safe, and well-amenitized and well-appointed homes for all different types of residents in Collier County. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. A couple things I want to add before we open it up for questions is what Greg didn't tell you is what it costs to build in a unit. An apartment unit is costing over $300,000 to build. That's what the construction costs are, and insurance costs have tripled. His original insurance projection for his current project was $600 a unit, and when he finally went to get his loan and start, it went to $1,600 a unit. Those are real costs and real expenses, and expenses that have to be passed through. But I wanted to put up here the savings that are associated with each type of unit at the different income categories. And you could see at the 80% category, for a studio apartment, which are very popular for people coming out of school, because they frankly don't want a lot of space because you have a lot of amenities. And they don't need a lot of space because we're in Florida. You're going to spend time outdoors, and you're going to sleep when you're sleeping, and you go enjoy yourself when you're not sleeping. So you're going to save $438 on that unit. And you go all the way up to a 3-bedroom unit. It's a $2,000 a month savings based upon income restrictions for the 80% category. For the 100% category, it's a $1,600 savings. And for the 120% category, it's a $933 savings associated with market rent versus income restricted rents. So this is a significant commitment by the developer of this community to provide safe, decent, quite nice housing for essential service personnel. Now, the property is currently in the Golden Gate, Urban Golden Gate Estates Master Plan. It is currently zoned estates. And there are other uses that can occur on this property, and they range. The ones that probably are least likely to happen is the one unit per 2¼ acres. That would put the per lot price at a per lot that probably the market doesn't support. So you could do group homes, you can do essential services on the property, and essential services includes a range of things that can occur, including public charter schools can occur on estates, designated lots, and we've been approached by one charter school. I'm sure there's others that are looking for expansion. It seems to be something that's very popular amongst educating our kids as charter schools. So we believe that the best use on this property and the best use for the community is what we're proposing. And there's been so much focus whenever we go to the Planning Commission on providing houses for essential service personnel. It's essential service personnel. So essentially what we're providing is an essential service to potential residents in Collier County. And with that, we are requesting that you approve both of our requests, and we're available to answer. You know what? I forgot one other thing, the hydrant. I have had some conversations with Jerry Kurtz. Where's Jerry? I've known Jerry since we were both young. He worked at the county, so I've known him for a long time. Jerry's talked to me about things that maybe he would like to see happen as part of the project, and we're committed to do that, whether he supports it or not. He's asked us to put a fire hydrant on Cherrywood Drive. That obviously will help homes on Cherrywood Drive. God forbid there's a fire, they will have an extra water source for that. We're committed to do that. We were asked to do that. We're not saying it's conditioned upon your coming up here and supporting the project. We've changed the architecture, we've changed the height, we've done additional buffers in response to what we've heard from the community. And with that, we'll open it up to any questions you may have of us.
I'm going to save my questions after public comment, but I have one or two commissioners lit up here. Commissioner Hall and then Commissioner Saunders.
I just have a question about, you mentioned the essential services. Is that by right in the estates?
Yes.
So that doesn't require a rezone at all?
Correct. You come in with a site development plan.
All right, thanks.
Commissioner Saunders.
Thank you. I have some transportation questions. Is it? I understand Mr. Trubelcock is.
Yeah, he's here.
Could I ask a
course.
couple questions?
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Norman Trubelcock. I'm a professional engineer, certified planner, professional traffic operations engineer with over 33 years of experience, and we prepared the traffic study. Yes, sir.
I have a couple concerns that I wanted to raise with you. The entrance road into the Island Walk property, where is your right in, right out access going to be in reference to that? And will there be any impact on their access?
We're going to be east of their access, where their entrance is, and I have the distance. Let me see. I believe we're 820 feet from their entranceway, so we're good sufficient distance away. Yes, sir.
I was talking to some of the homeowners in Island Walk, and they raised a couple questions. One was school buses and how is that going to be handled with an apartment complex? I assume that there'll be several children. So how will the school bus pickup and drop off be handled?
Good point. And that detail hasn't specifically been worked out, but normally what would occur is you would either, what I've seen in my community as well is they drop off within like a community center area, and that's what would be made available for the school folks, and they're good about that so that it's safe for the children, and it also doesn't create a disruption for the external traffic on the main line roadway. That would be our main preference, but we coordinate with the school folks and make sure it's satisfactory to them.
Most likely, we're going to break for lunch before there's a final decision made, and so maybe during the lunch break you can kind of look at that a little bit and provide a little bit better or a little bit more explanation on that. Then, in terms of the U-turn, folks will leave the apartment, turn to the right, and then there'll be a median cut for them to make a U-turn. What's the distance?
There is an existing median cut at Palmerell Cemetery, and that would be the location of where we would put in that turn lane there.
Is there enough distance so that exiting vehicles will be able to make that U-turn?
Yes, sir. It's approximately 1,000 feet from the driveway to the Palmerell Cemetery location, and that would allow them an ample opportunity to weave over to that, and so just as we have throughout Collier County.
Wait 1 second. Okay.
On main lane roadways.
Wait 1 second.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So my job as chairman is to control a professional meeting, all right? And so when you come up here to the podium, if everything he said is a lie, then you get a chance to speak. But you don't want him to boo you and heckle him and hear conversations in the back. So I just ask everybody to be professional. We're trying to hear what's being said up here, and if you totally disagree with it, we have 60 speakers that have already registered to come over here, and so then that's your turn to speak. So I would just appreciate we're in a professional building, trying to have a professional meeting, and everybody's going to get the chance to tell us why everything he said is wrong if that's how you feel. But right now we're trying to hear, his portion. So I would just appreciate if everybody would just be professional so that we can hear, and we're going to be professional when you're up here speaking as well. Thank you.
I'm just trying to go through some of the concerns that have been raised. I do have some water management issues. Mr. Jovanovic, I'm not sure who would be best to ask about that.
Okay. I could circle back too for you on that.
Yeah,
school bus.
I would be interested in knowing how.
I've got it shown here is so that the concept would be, the vehicle would be able to come in here, and there's an activity center right here for the development, and that would be our preference as a location for pickup and drop off of students. And then the site's designed to accommodate a school bus to be able to drive through, as it's designed for a fire truck to be able to drive through the project. And so that would be the idea. That would be our preference, to keep the folks off of the mainline roadway. Would be our preference for doing that.
Would there be room to have a school bus turnout in the front there?
In the front right here, I mean, the turn lane can be used, and they can be off the mainline roadway as far as that goes, and folks could be picked up, and then from that point you could get back on the mainline roadway. But I think our first preference would be to allow them to be able to come into the property to make it a better spot for folks to congregate. Again, that's what my community does as well. We, at our activity centers where we pick up, have the students pick up, and that would be our preference. And we're gated as well.
And I would like to ask just a couple questions on the on the stormwater.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Another issue that's been raised is the potential impact on the lakes and other water management infrastructure at the Island Walk area. Can you comment on what the potential impacts would be, if any?
Yes, sir. For Commissioners, for the record, Josh Fruth with Peninsula Engineering. So as we mentioned previously with CCPC, we're in the preliminary stages, but we would have to abide by all of South Florida basis of review standards and guidelines. In a nutshell, that means that we would be self-containing our water management, abide by the Clean Water Act for quality and volume. This property is actually in the Green Canal Basin, which is outside of Island Walks Basin, which is the Harvey Canal Basin. So our water does not discharge towards Island Walk. It would be proposed to discharge down Cherrywood, which goes to the Green Canal.
All right, then one other question, Mr. Yovanovich, dealing with management of the property. Thank you. That was really my question. In terms of what type of management will there be? Will there be on-site management? What's the plan for?
I'm going to let Greg talk about that and also how they address who can rent and live in their communities.
Thank you. Yes, we manage all of our own communities internally. So we have our own management team that's here 24/7, and we manage everything in our portfolio.
Will there be someone living on site, or is that just, you say 24/7, what does that mean?
Well, it depends. We have communities where staff, some live on site and some do not. It just varies from one community to another. It generally works better for that staff person if they don't live there. Because now, not that there's not a line to call for maintenance. We have maintenance techs that are on 24/7, but most of the time employees would choose not to live on the property just because they want to distance themselves a little bit when they're off duty.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have right now, Mr. Chairman. I may have a few after the public comment.
Okay. What I would ask the commissioners, if you have a preliminary question right now, we can always go back to the applicant. But one of my preference is I don't like splitting up public comment, hearing from 5 people and taking an hour break and then hearing from the other 45. So to better utilize our time, and Commissioner McDaniel's lit up, but if any of the other commissioners have something, like I said, we can always go back to the applicant and we can always go back to the citizens. But Commissioner McDaniel, sir, floor is yours.
And I'll be quick. This is for Josh, if you would please. Please explain the discharge statement that you made, because you talked about the discharge going out onto Cherrywood. Cherrywood's already got an enormous issue with stormwater as it sits. Talk about the discharge itself, because it was represented to me that the project was going to retain its own water. So how when you talk about discharge, you say discharge, that's not retaining your own water.
Yeah, so that's correct. Again, for the record, Josh Fruth. In a normal rain event, the property retains or detains, depending on the type of water management, what you would typically see in a commercial operation with depressions, green sodded areas, and as I say, in a normal rain event, that water would naturally perk into the ground. It would not discharge off the property. If there was a large rain event where we're attenuating large volumes of water, per the basis review and guidelines, there's a certain discharge rate that we're allowed to let water leave the property. And that's all modeled and designed as we get into engineering. This general area is actually, for the most part, a pretty low discharge rate. The Cherrywood Canal area, this roadside swale, has certain elevations that we would model with tailwater conditions to assist with designing it to not adversely impact the neighborhoods upstream or downstream. And that's all part of the basis review that we have to go through when we get into our South Florida water management permitting. And if we don't abide by it, we won't get a permit.
So in oversimplified terms, the only time there is discharge is in an abnormal 2,500-year, 500-year storm event.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I just want to follow up on that. So what I'm hearing, when you say that a property would retain its own water because you have grass and everything would just get absorbed sort of naturally, are you doing anything construction-wise or from a design standpoint, retention pond, something that does more than just grass-absorbing water? Because we are concerned about runoff with any project. What are you doing construction-wise, if anything, to handle water movement other than just, well, we're going to plant a lot of grass and during the normal rainstorm you don't get runoff because everything absorbs? Around here, I mean, I got plenty of grass in my front yard, and during a minimal rainstorm, my front yard is a lake, and I got plenty of places in my district. Is there something you're doing as part of the design to improve, or to prevent water runoff other than just, hey, it's going to happen naturally during a normal rainstorm, because sometimes it doesn't happen naturally?
Yeah, so any discharge that does happen is controlled. So when we get into the full design, there'll be certain elevations that are set, and we'll have a control berm around the property to contain water from leaving the property except for that controlled location. Part of the design will likely include some sort of treatment train system, which will assist with as I mentioned, the Clean Water Act for pre versus post calculations on nutrients. And that part is exactly what you mentioned. There's probably a dry portion of the system and maybe a wet portion of the system, a lake. And in the treatment train, it navigates through this system before it is allowed, if it does, have to discharge off the property in that controlled spot, not just flooding every perimeter boundary.
Okay. Any other commissioners have any questions? Or
I got one.
Commissioner Hall.
Is there any tortoises, burrowing owls, eagles, anything like that on this 17 acres?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Bobko with Earth Tech Environmental, and we've done preliminary studies, a protected species survey, looking for general listed species on the site, as well as a tree cavity survey looking specifically for Florida bonneted bats. And at this point, we've even inspected some tree cavities that we did find on the site. We haven't found any evidence of listed species, including gopher tortoise and or burrowing owl.
Great, thanks.
What do you all? What's your recommendation here? We normally would break at 12:30. I mean, how many comments do we have?
Mr. Chair, we have 65. That's 3 hours and 15 minutes of comment.
Do we want to have a report from staff before we take our lunch
Well,
break?
that's what we could. Yeah, we could call staff forward. One of the things I'll just tell citizens, so we have a large amount of public comment, and that's great. That's what that's perfectly within your right. The only suggestion that I say, and this isn't direction, it's suggestion, especially if you've never been in here and made public comment before. One of the things that we ask is that it can be much more advantageous if some people yield their time to one person. So instead of 60 people coming up here and only having 3 minutes to say why they hate the project, one person getting their time yielded from, say, 6 people could get a person to come up here who is maybe knows more about the project, is very eloquent, and they're not playing beat the clock with 3 minutes. They have 16 minutes, 18 minutes, 20 minutes, because people have yielded their time. So that might be something you want to talk about, especially if we break for lunch. 65 people all come up here and get 3 minutes apiece. That's exactly how the process works. But also too, there can be an advantage that if you team up and give one person your time. Also, if you hear somebody say exactly what you are going to say, and you're the next speaker, you can raise your time and say, I yield my time. I have nothing else to add. We're not advocating that, not suggesting it or being directive, just trying to explain how the process works here so that you can get the best bang for your buck and we can really hear the strength of the argument. And sometimes there's better ways to do that so that we can hear the bulk of your rebuttal in most cases to this case. But Commissioner McDaniel, is there somebody specific you wanted to call up from the county staff or?
Mr. Bosey.
Yeah,
Mr. Bosey's right
Yep.
there. He's the walk-in expert.
Mike Bosey, Planning and Zoning Director. Good afternoon. As indicated within the executive summary for both of the petitions, staff has reviewed with the supporting various subject matter experts. We are recommending approval upon the Growth Management Plan amendment as well as the PUD amendment. One of the things that I wanted to point out, and this relates to the Growth Management Plan amendment. During the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission did recommend approval at 4-1 of the proposal. During the Planning Commission, there was a lot of testimony that was stated that this was inconsistent with the Growth Management Plan or the Golden Gate Area Master Plan, the Urban Estates sub-element. And I don't disagree with that. What I wanted to point out with you is within our Growth Management Plan, there's 11 elements. Not every one of those elements complements each other. What I put up on the visualizer is from your future land use element. There's underlying concepts. These are even above your goals, your objectives, or policies. These are the things that drive those goals, objectives, and policies. Protection of natural resource, coordination of land use and public facilities, management of coastal development, provision of adequate and affordable housing. That's a provision that is underlying the concept within our GMP. Within our economic element, there's a policy that says that in response to the current and projected needs of its residents, the county will encourage diverse mix of housing types, sizes, prices, and rents. There's a housing element that says the first goal is to create an adequate supply of decent, safe, sanitary, and affordable housing for all residents of Collier County. Within the urban estate sub-element, the goal is to preserve their area's rural character and define large wooded lots, the keeping of livestock, the ability to grow crops, wildlife activity, environmental stewardship, low-density residential development, and limitations on commercial and conditional uses. I put all this up there to basically point out that within our growth management plan, within our elements within our growth management plans, there's a number of priorities. Those priorities don't always complement each other. There's always an evaluation that is made by the decision makers, by staff, and ultimately by the Planning Commission and ultimately the Board of County Commissioners when you're arriving upon your decisions, how much weight you put within those individual goals, objective policies, or concepts that are contained within our GMP. I explain a good explanation is within our rural land stewardship area program that deals with their eastern lands. When we were told that we were out of compliance with the Florida statutes, we were told to evaluate environmental protection, agricultural protection, and property right protection. Well, they don't always complement each other, and sometimes they can be in competition with each other. So everything's an evaluation. Everything's a scale. There are no binary questions in decisions within land use. There's a number of systems that make up the overall land use and activities that are within the county. So when we evaluate the proposal against the Golden Gate Area Master Plan and the urban estate sub-element, it's not complementary to a portion of it. But there's other portions of our growth management plan that are concepts, that are goals, that are objectives, that are policies that the proposal does complement. And from that perspective, without the further input of the overwhelming need for additional affordable housing, the growth management plan's staff recommended approval, and the Planning Commission agreed with it. So then we come down to the plan to the PUD, and I was going to show the master plan to show the context of this site in comparison to the surrounding property owners. I think that the applicant did a pretty good job of explaining all of those functionalities. And one of the main considerations was how this property sits, how it sits next to a 6-lane divided urban highway, how it is across the street from urban development. It's within the urban area, that it sits to the east of a non-residential land use. That, coupled with the buffering and the enhanced the preserves and the enhanced buffering to the west and to the south to really isolate this project from the existing neighborhood. Not only that, the commitment to fence the interior towards the property side is where the fence goes, where towards where your buffer, your preserve, and your buffer is, to further isolate the interactivity with this project to the street, to Cherrywood to the south. The intensity of this project is solely focused on Vanderbilt Beach Drive, a 6-lane divided highway that will absorb 110 PM peak hour trips relatively easily. Staff's perspective in a final recognition was the type of multifamily structure that's being proposed. We thought it was considerate and complementary to the estate properties that does sit to the west, not a 3 or 4 story structure that are traditional multifamily apartments are arranged, but more in a residential, more single-family type of a feel. And one of the things that I would point out, and it's related to how I feel that the intensity of this project is focused solely upon Vanderbilt Beach Drive. If you notice any of the estates lots that sit to the west of this project, they don't have their driveways don't sit to Vanderbilt Beach Drive. They sit to Cherrywood Drive. That isolates that neighborhood to Cherrywood Drive. The orientation, the focus of this project with the access point on Vanderbilt Drive, with the interior fencing that would prevent interaction with the neighborhood to the west and to the south, with the additional buffers, with the preservation, we thought all of those factors were beneficial to protecting the integrity of the existing neighborhood. And because of that, because of all of those factors, staff was recommending an approval to the Planning Commission, in which the Planning Commission agreed. With that, I'd like to answer any questions that you may have related to staff's review.
I have a question for you and maybe Trinity or I think I'll go to, we're on staff communication, so in regard to the buffering, talk to me a little bit, because one of the things that I've learned is there is an underlying use here of that can come before us or not before us. It doesn't even come before us if a charter school were to come to this particular site. It's big enough to manage a charter school. What would be the setback requirements and buffering requirements and management of traffic if a use like that came forward?
The buffering requirements for a non-residential land use next to the estates, because it is an ag zoning district, would not receive the benefit of the wall that your traditional RSF 1 through 6 would receive. So I think it would be a traditional buffer of a B buffer with a setback. The setbacks would be what the estate zoning district is, 75 feet from the front, 75 feet in the back, and I believe the side yard setback within the estate zoning district is 30 feet. So those traditional setbacks would still apply. But it wouldn't, as I think it was stated, there would be no requirement for a public hearing. It would definitely be a straight to site development plan process, and all the code requirements would kick in that regard. The requirement for where the access points, I'm not sure where transportation would fall upon that, whether they would require a transportation access point on Cherrywood. I'm not sure about that. Maybe we'll turn to Trinity for that.
Trinity's right behind you. Just before she comes, what are the existing buffers on this development in comparison to what requisites already exist within the estate zoning? It was represented that this development has enhanced buffering, wider setbacks, larger preserves. That was the comparison that I was looking for.
Yeah, well, the native preserve requirement of 50 feet and an additional 20 feet restriction for where parking would be, it's that 75-foot essential buffer. That's what they are providing, but they are actually offering a enhanced buffer with fencing and some cultivated landscaping as well in terms of native preserve. So it is an additional buffer than what would have been provided for if this was developed as a addition or another permitted use such as a school.
I think our buffering expert's lining up behind Trinity. You want to bring her up first, and then we'll go to the traffic thing if you don't mind. And she got the memo today.
Rock crusher.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready, sir. Jamie Cook, your Development Review Director. So if this came in as a school or some other commercial use, they would only be required to have a type B 15-foot wide buffer on the east and west boundaries.
How about the south?
The south, they would be required to put a 10-foot type D buffer, which is a row of hedges and, I'm sorry, 2 rows of hedges and a row of trees. So only 10 feet wide though. So they are widening the buffer, and it will be more dense with more vegetation all the way around the property.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Trinity? She thought she was going to get a pass.
You asked her about traffic.
I am.
Yeah.
The two questions is, first of all, there again, I'm going to use the charter school proposition as a comparison. If a charter school came to utilize this piece of property, would you have any say-so in their access points to and fro?
I personally would not. It actually would go through Jamie Cook's division. But she would certainly be working with us over in transportation to look at that. And we would evaluate it based on the time when they came forward with the amount of traffic that they would anticipate, looking at being able to queue parents. I mean, we all know that parents typically for charter schools are a lot of parent drop-off and pickup.
Virtually all of them, they don't have bus services. Do you have an estimation as to the trips generated for a typical charter school? There's 2 out on Immokalee Road right now.
I don't off the top of my head, but after lunch, I could certainly have it for you.
Okay, I'd like to have that information at some stage. Miss Jamie, you want to add?
I mean,
to
the chances are that number's going to be more than what this apartment complex would generate, correct? At
Yes.
the school?
Yes, sir.
A bigger number.
Those 2 schools that are out on Immokalee Road right now are K through 12 with 800 to 1,000 kids. Jamie Cook, do you have an answer on the access points for me? Do you get a say-so on the access points when the school comes in? Because again, they're deemed an essential service, and they all virtually carte blanche as far as I understand.
You are correct. They would come in with an operational TIS, which staff would evaluate in conjunction with Trinity's staff. Access points and any road improvements would be determined at the site development plan and would be required to be complete before they can do their on-site construction. But there could be impacts to Cherrywood as well as Vanderbilt Beach Road.
Right, and are you allowed to, do you have as much flexibility and requisites for management of the increase in traffic? Do you, when a charter school comes in, do you have the capacity, such as what the developer's proposing, to do turn lanes and to do U-turns and so on and so forth?
Correct. If there needed to be, if they would be required by the TIS, then they would have to be done.
So it's triggered by the TIS?
Correct.
Okay. That's all my questions,
Commissioner
sir.
Saunders and then Commissioner Colwell.
Just a couple quick questions for Mr. Bosey. What other types of uses could that property be put to that would not require a public hearing in front of this commission? You mentioned charter schools, or what else?
The essential services that are dictated in 201 of the Land Development Code.
If you could tell me what those are. You can, after lunch is fine, too.
Okay, I will have to review those. I don't have them committed to memory.
All right.
You don't know what.
Come on, Mike.
But it's quite a few things. It's that land could hold all kinds of things.
Well,
and a lot of things that wouldn't put us in a meeting like this.
The permitted uses are pretty limited. You have single-family homes, you have essential services, you have public schools, group care facilities. I just don't know of all the essential services that could be placed there by a matter of right.
If you could provide us that
Yes.
information after lunch.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for transportation again, if you guys don't mind. While you're walking up, I guess I'll ask. When the applicant brought their study for traffic to the staff, and I know, the numbers that were brought and things that were said to alleviate with the turn lanes, deceleration lanes, U-turns. Is there any safeguards for when we do eventually open Vanderbilt Beach Road, open up till 16th, to regulate or if revisit? Because we don't really know, or we have an idea or a formula that says what we're expecting the traffic to increase when that does open eventually. And is there any safeguards that the applicant or anybody in the future if that does impact us?
So it would not, for the record, Trinity Scott, Department Head, Transportation Management Services, we would not go back to the applicant after they've already built and said, hey, you have to do all of these new improvements. But what we are planning on doing, number one, the intersection at Vanderbilt Beach Road and Logan Boulevard, we had a project in last fiscal year's capital improvement program that we put out to bid. Fortunately, it came in much higher to improve the intersection at Logan Boulevard in anticipation of that. So we are currently reevaluating those bids and determining whether or not we're going to award. We have to try to find the delta between that bid and what we had budgeted. In addition, we also have a planning study programmed within our 5-year program once Vanderbilt Beach Road Extension opens and that traffic normalizes, where we will be looking at the intersections from Airport all the way down to Livingston to evaluate those and determine if we have operational challenges so that we can help that traffic flow better. But from the mainline capacity, there is sufficient capacity to accept additional traffic, but we would look at those operational improvements at the intersections.
Thank you.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Before you go, they suggested that a trip cap was part of their development criterion. Who manages the cap? What happens when it's tipped?
It doesn't get tipped. So it doesn't get tipped on paper. So what happens when a development comes in for their site development plan or their plats and plans, they do a new traffic impact statement based on the new ITE trip generation manual, and that becomes a running total with the development. So if they come in and they only do 100 units in their first site development plan, we mark down how many of those trips that they have absorbed. When they come in for their next submittal, if they decide to phase the project, if the ITE trip generation manual changes and the type of use that they are anticipating, if those trips per unit go higher, they may not be able to realize the full development potential of the property. They may have to take a unit or two off.
So by their representation of a trip cap of 110, if my brain serves me correctly, then between whenever, if this project moves forward, if there was a change in that ITE, I think you called it, indicated that they would exceed that, then they would have to reduce the amount of units that they could in fact construct.
Correct.
Okay. No further questions.
Okay, I'm going to propose that we take a lunch break and come back at 1:30, and then we can hear from the public comment without any breaks at all. How many do we have registered right now, Mr. Miller?
65, and there are quite a few that are grouped together, seated time.
Okay, we will return at 1:30.